I speedrunning character creation like my life depended on it. Which, technically, it didn't. I was just gambling for a good starter account to sell. I picked male, obviously, then spent way too long sculpting the most devastatingly handsome face known to mankind. We're talking, angels weep with jealousy, levels of pretty. Because if I roll a rare spirit root, this account's gonna be worth serious cash, and nobody's buying an ugly avatar. Then the game hit me with some new anti-addiction ID verification garbage. Like, hello? Since when do I bind my info before checking my spirit root? These devs are out here personally attacking account farmers, and I'm taking it personally. Whatever. Bind, unbind, same thing. Moving on. Difficulty, Hongming mode. Obviously, that's where the whales swim. Rich people don't play easy mode. They play, watch me throw money at this screen mode. Some warning popped up about permanent death and data deletion. Did I read it? Absolutely not. I've got spirit roots to gamble on, people. I got sucked into the game world and woke up to some NPC girl, Yi Ningfrost, the game's main heroine, shaking me and acting all worried. Real cute, real scripted, real don't care. I immediately started rolling my eyes around looking for the skip button. It was gone. The skip button was gone. You trash game, where's my skip? No patch notes. No announcement. I'm writing the angriest forum post of my life when I log out. Meanwhile, this NPC was watching me have a meltdown and literally whispered to herself. I think this guy might be an idiot. Rude. But fair. Also, something felt off. The game was too real. Like, I was actually getting tired from walking. Since when does a video game give you cardio? But whatever, no time to think about it. I grabbed a sword from the starter weapon table. Swords can roll sword-type spirit roots, and those sell for crazy money. Then started bunny hopping toward the first quest area like a maniac. The quest was, save Yi Ningfrost from bandits. Standard stuff. But I didn't even bother accepting it. Why would I? I can just murder everyone first and pick up the quest reward after. Efficiency, baby. I hopped my way to some broken temple where this giant 2-meter bandit boss was sitting around being dramatic about some mystery box he couldn't open. Dude was stressed, covered in wounds, and ranting about how everyone was hunting him for this thing. He also ordered his goons to kidnap Yi Ningfrost for entertainment. Classy. Too bad for him. I was already outside doing unspeakable things to his minions with basic sword moves. And I mean basic. Slash, stab, poke. That's my entire toolkit. No skills, no combos, just raw gamer violence. But here's the weird part. These guys were dying in one hit. On homing difficulty, the hardest mode in the game. These mobs had the durability of wet tissue paper. Where were the health bars? Why couldn't I see any HP? Was the UI broken too? Is this a bug? I wondered, while casually slicing through guys like a lawnmower through grass. One bandit ran inside screaming, "Boss, a villager is out there massacring everyone." The boss was like, "A villager? Massacring? Are you high?" Then that guy just straight up died mid-sentence. Comedy gold. The boss came out, saw me, and charged with his big fancy horse-chopping blade. Very intimidating. Very dramatic. Very useless. I just dodged everything. Duck, sprint, jump, roll. No martial arts. No special techniques. Just pure gamer muscle memory. The man couldn't touch my sleeve. Meanwhile, I'm just nibbling away at his health like a very persistent mosquito with a sword. 2 full minutes of this. Death by 1,000 tiny cuts. The most undignified boss death in gaming history. And then, the part that truly killed him, spiritually. I immediately ignored his corpse, sprinted into the building, grabbed his precious mystery box that he couldn't open for weeks, and popped it open instantly. He literally died again from anger. Like, double dead. The man rage quit existence. I popped that pill like candy, and, hold on, why does it taste like someone dumped an entire sugar factory in my mouth? Pills in this game have never had flavor. But whatever, I had bigger things to worry about. My spirit root panel started flickering. Randomizing. I was staring at it so hard my eyeballs nearly fell out. Then it turned purple. Purple. I started jumping up and down like a lunatic. Purple means top tier. Purple means money. But then the final result locked in, and I nearly had a heart attack right there in a broken temple surrounded by dead bandits. Dao Sword Spirit Root. Ice Attribute. Hidden State. Let me translate that for normal people. I just won the lottery, got struck by lightning, and found a 4-leaf clover all at the same time. This spirit root was literally an urban legend. 300 million was once offered for it, and nobody had ever rolled one. It heals you when you deal damage, does percentage-based true damage, and basically makes you immortal as long as you have mana. The community called it the developer's cheat code, and I got the ice version, which rich players go absolutely feral for because the visual effects look like a billionaire's screensaver. My brain immediately started doing math. Pay off all my loans. Buy a car. Buy a house. Maybe 2 houses. Maybe I'll buy the bank that gave me the loan just to flex. Then the quest completion popped up, 1,500 experience and spirit leaves just for clearing those bandits. That's in-game rewards for a tutorial mission. This account was basically printing money. All right, time to log out and become a millionaire. I pulled up the menu. I pulled up the menu again. I searched every corner of my interface 17 times. The logout button was gone. Gone. Like it never existed. Like someone reached into my UI and surgically removed it. Meanwhile, the NPC girl was watching me frantically paw at thin air and gently suggested I might need a doctor. Which, honestly, fair diagnosis. That's when the panic crept in. I grabbed her face, not in a weird way, in a scientific way, and she was warm. She blushed and shoved me away. NPCs don't blush. NPCs don't have body heat. NPCs aren't supposed to feel like actual human beings. So I ran outside, grabbed a dead bandit's knife, and cut my own arm. It hurt. Real pain. Real blood. I sat down on the ground, and my brain basically blue-screened. No logout button. NPCs are alive. Pain is real. I watched torches approaching from town, some kind of local police coming to clean up the bodies, and started laughing like a maniac because that never happened in the game either. This wasn't a game anymore. I'd been ISEKAI'd into my own MMO. I passed out from exhaustion right there. Woke up the next morning still in the same ancient peasant bedroom, still no logout, still very much trapped. Climbed onto a rooftop hoping to spot another player. Instead, I just got a beautiful sunrise and a crushing existential crisis. I checked my system panel one more time. World chat? Gone. Party finder? Gone. Customer support? Gone. Everything that connected me to the real world had been quietly deleted while I was busy speedrunning character creation like an idiot who doesn't read terms and conditions. Oh, and the cherry on top? I picked Hongming difficulty. The maximum difficulty. The everything wants to kill you and death is permanent difficulty. I rolled the greatest account in gaming history, and I'm stuck inside it on the hardest setting with no way out. I kind of wanted to die, but given that death here might be actual death, that plan had some obvious flaws. So there I was, sitting on a rooftop like a depressed gargoyle, staring at the sky and questioning every single life decision that led me to this moment. Meanwhile, down below, Yi Frost was apparently living her best life because of me. See, here's what happened while I was busy having my existential meltdown. This girl, who I thought was just a scripted NPC with nice dialogue, actually went to the local government office and collected bounty money for those bandits I turned into confetti. Turns out those guys had prices on their heads. And because she rescued the hero who saved the town, that hero being the guy currently sitting on her roof contemplating the meaninglessness of existence, she got a fat bonus too. 500 silver taels. That's what my emotional breakdown was worth apparently. She left it on the table under a rock like it was a tip at a restaurant. But before the money part, she did something even more hilarious. She hired a doctor. For me. Because she was genuinely convinced I was brain damaged. And honestly, I couldn't even be mad about that diagnosis. This old doctor showed up, looked up at me on the roof, and his first professional medical observation was, and I quote, "Yep, he does look pretty stupid up there. Excuse me, sir? I have a Tao sword spirit root worth 300 million. I am the most valuable human being in this entire world, and you're calling me stupid from ground level?" But I didn't say any of that because I was too busy staring into the void wondering if my landlord back in the real world was going to throw my stuff out. The old man climbed up a bamboo ladder, grabbed my wrist, checked my pulse, nodded wisely, then climbed back down. Very dramatic. Very traditional Chinese medicine. 10 out of 10 performance. Yi Frost chased after him like a worried mom at a pediatrician's office. So, what's wrong with him? Is he fixable? The doctor's verdict? Nothing's actually wrong with him. He just experienced something traumatic and can't accept reality. Give him a few days, he'll snap out of it. I mean, technically correct? I literally got teleported into a video game world with no way home. Can't accept reality is the understatement of whatever century this is. But then, and this is the part that really got me, Yi Ningfrost mentioned my bunny hopping. You know, the thing every gamer does to move faster? Jump walk through town like a caffeinated kangaroo? The doctor didn't even blink. Oh, that. He probably used to know martial arts and had excellent movement techniques. He's lost his memory, so his body instinctively tries to use those skills but can't fully execute them. That's why he hops around. And Yi Ningfrost bought it. 100%. No questions asked. Oh, that makes so much sense. He did kill all those bandits by himself. Lady, I was bunny hopping. I was doing the thing 12-year-olds do in shooter games to avoid getting headshot. And you turned it into, he's a fallen martial arts master with amnesia. The fanfiction writes itself. Also, apparently she thought I was too pretty to be a man. Which, fair. I did spend like 40 minutes sculpting that face and character creation. I made myself look like if a K-pop idol and an anime protagonist had a baby. In a world of medieval peasants, I probably looked like an alien. A very handsome alien who hops everywhere and stares at invisible menus. After the doctor left, and Yi Ningfrost headed out to gather herbs in the mountains, I finally snapped out of my funk. Because here's the thing about me. I'm a professional. A top-tier free-to-play player. The kind of guy who beats content that whales spend thousands on without dropping a single cent. If anyone could survive being trapped in the hardest difficulty of an immortal cultivation world, it was me. So I did what any rational person would do in my situation. I opened my game system and started taking inventory. Good news first. My Tao Sword Spirit root was still there, hidden but real. Equipment system still worked. Skill system still worked. My inventory bag functioned like a magical storage ring, which in this world was basically a luxury item that people would kill for. Main quests still gave experience. The map worked, even though most of it was covered in fog of war like I was playing a strategy game blind. I also had 20 healing pills and 20 mana pills in my inventory. Starter freebies that I never would have cared about in the game. But now, these were literally the difference between life and death. I immediately changed my auto-use settings from 30% health to 70%. I'm not gambling anymore. The second I stub my toe, I want a pill flying into my mouth. Best part? No cooldowns on the pills. In the game, there were cooldowns. Here, nothing. Just unlimited panic healing. Beautiful. Now the bad news. I had no combat techniques. Zero. My spirit root was godlike, but without actual sword skills, I was just a really lucky peasant with a pointy stick. I had 1,500 experience points sitting there doing nothing because I had no skill books to dump them into. In the game, I would have just walked to the martial arts hall and bought a basic sword manual. Easy. 5 minutes. But now I was terrified of wasting resources. What if experience was harder to earn here? What if the economy was different? What if I blew my points on a trash technique and then needed them later? And then there were my 10 revival pills. My get out of death free cards. In the game, these were just extra lives. Here, I had absolutely no idea if they actually worked, and I was not about to test that theory. Hey, let me stab myself in the heart to see if this resurrection mechanic functions in reality. No thank you. I choose life. Uninformed, cautious, cowardly life. After all that mental accounting, I took one deep breath and gave myself the world's least convincing pep talk. Okay, you're trapped in a death game on the hardest setting. You have no skills, no allies, no way home, and your only friend thinks you're brain damaged. But you're alive. You have the most broken spirit root in existence, and you once cleared in-game raids without spending a penny. You've got this? Now go eat something before you die of starvation like the world's most pathetic immortal cultivator. Okay, so after my rooftop depression session, my stomach basically staged a hostile takeover of my brain. Turns out existential dread burns a lot of calories, because I walked into this little noodle shop in Peacetown and turned into a human vacuum cleaner. 12 bowls. 12. I inhaled 12 bowls of noodles like I'd never seen food before in my life. And the crazy part? Every single bite was incredible. Back in the real world, the VR headset would just zap your taste buds with pre-programmed flavors like a microwave pretending to be a chef. But this, real broth made from real bones, real vegetables, real everything. I was having a spiritual awakening over a bowl of noodles while simultaneously being terrified for my life. Very confusing emotional cocktail. The shop owner called me Little Hero because apparently word travels fast in a town with like 50 people. I solo wiped a bandit camp last night, and now I'm the local celebrity. Everyone was treating me like family, smiling, waving, being all warm and wholesome, which was deeply unsettling because I knew every single one of their faces from the game. I'd clicked through their dialogue boxes 10,000 times. Watching them suddenly be real people with real personalities was like seeing your desktop icons come to life and start having opinions. My body was running on empty too, which made zero sense. I literally custom-built this body from scratch in character creation. No backstory, no training history, no nothing. Just a pretty face and a six-pack I sculpted myself. So why was I eating like a starving bear coming out of hibernation? My best guess was that whatever cosmic nonsense dragged me into this world left my body running on fumes. Like a brand new car delivered with an empty tank. Oh, and fun detail, my in-game username defaulted to my actual name, Ing Huaishu. And the local government apparently had records showing I was an orphan refugee from Quietwater City. A complete, airtight, perfectly reasonable identity that I absolutely did not create. Either the system fabricated a backstory for me, or there was already a real person with my name in this world whose life I accidentally hijacked. I decided not to think about that too hard because that rabbit hole had no bottom. After filling my stomach with roughly 7 pounds of noodles, I tried to pay. Handed over a 100-tael silver note. The owner looked at me like I tried to pay for a candy bar with a briefcase full of hundreds. He couldn't break it. Sent me to the bank to get change. I left the note with him as collateral, and he looked genuinely touched that I trusted him with it. Meanwhile, I was thinking, dude, it's basically Monopoly money to me. Please just give me my noodles. 24 copper coins. That's what 12 bowls cost. I had over 400 taels of silver. At this rate, I could eat noodles 3 times a day for the rest of my natural life and still die rich. The problem was, money was completely useless for what I actually needed. You can't buy immortality at the corner store. Speaking of immortality, in about a month, cultivators from a major sect would show up to test everyone's spirit roots. My Dao sword root was hidden, so all they'd detect was a bottom-tier trash root. That's just how the game worked. Everyone starts at the lowest rank regardless of what you actually rolled. In the game, you'd fix that by spending real money in the cash shop. But my cash shop was gone. Vanished. Poof. I wanted to swipe my credit card at the universe, and it said, terminal not found. Meanwhile, Yi Ningfrost, the main character of this whole world, had it easy. Her hidden heavenly spirit root would just automatically upgrade through story progression. No money needed. Plot armor is the ultimate free-to-play strategy, and I was deeply jealous of a woman who didn't even know she was in a story. After my financial crisis therapy session, I decided to do some scouting. I knew Peace Town like the back of my hand from thousands of hours of gameplay, so I went checking every secret quest location, hidden item spot, and special landmark I could remember. Total findings, absolutely nothing. Every hidden quest trigger was just a regular object now. The magic willow tree in the town center that was supposed to unlock the full map? Just a tree. Standing there. Being wooden. Contributing nothing. The teleport stone at the town gate? Just a rock. A big, dumb, non-magical rock. I was starting to feel genuine fear. Too many game features were missing. Too many unknowns. And I was stuck on the hardest difficulty where everything could probably kill me. But then, sweet, beautiful salvation. I walked far enough to uncover the whole town on my map, and the system chimed in with 100 bonus experience points just for exploring. Music to my ears. The game mechanics weren't completely dead. They were just different. And then I spotted it. An exclamation mark on my mini-map. A quest. A real, actual, glowing quest marker. I nearly cried. Quests meant experience. Experience meant progress. Progress meant maybe not dying horribly. I sprinted over and found my old friend, the doctor who diagnosed me as probably stupid that morning. He was sitting there looking miserable because he'd spent years completing some ancient pill recipe but was missing one final ingredient, something called blazing light grass. Never heard of it. No idea what it looked like. Poor guy was stuck. Lucky for him, I was a walking encyclopedia of useless game knowledge. I accepted his quest, the pathfinding system kicked in, and the navigation arrow pointed straight up. The herb was growing on his own roof. This man had been searching for years for a plant that was literally above his head the entire time. I jumped up, grabbed it, and handed it down to him. He stared at the weed, then stared at his roof, then stared at the weed again with the expression of someone reconsidering their entire medical career. He disappeared inside to try making the pill. 10 minutes later, boom. His house basically coughed up a mushroom cloud of smoke. He stumbled out hacking and wheezing, hair probably singed, holding a fistful of freshly exploded pills that were still hot enough to cook an egg on. "Here, take these," he said, shoving them into my hands like a man who never wanted to see a pill furnace again. 300 experience and 10 bone-strengthening pills. My first completed quest in this terrifying new reality, and all I had to do was look up. Sometimes the universe throws you a bone. A very warm, recently detonated bone. I discovered something beautiful and terrifying about myself that day. I eat like a broken garbage disposal with no off switch. After my first quest victory, I was riding high on 300 experience points and a handful of pills that were still warm enough to toast bread on. But before I could celebrate, my stomach reminded me that saving the world means nothing if you're starving. So I parked myself at a noodle stand and proceeded to commit crimes against portion sizes. The food in this world was absolutely unreal. And I mean that literally. Back in the VR game, flavor was just electrical signals tricking your tongue. Fake deliciousness. Corporate-approved taste simulation. But here, real bone broth. Real vegetables pulled from real dirt. Real noodles made by a real old man who genuinely cared about his craft. I slurped those noodles so loud, I probably scared the chickens 3 streets over. 12 bowls later, I was still hungry, which made absolutely no sense because this body I was wearing had 0 history. I built it from scratch in character creation. No martial arts training, no backstory, nothing that should cause this kind of calorie deficit. My body was acting like it had been running a marathon for a week straight. But since nobody could explain it, I just kept eating and hoped for the best. The townspeople had fully adopted me at this point. Everyone was calling me little hero and treating me like the mayor's favorite nephew. Very sweet, very wholesome, very weird when you remember that I used to click through these people's dialogue boxes without reading a single word. Now they had families, opinions, and feelings, and I was having an emotional crisis over noodle soup. Money was also hilariously useless. I tried to pay for my 12 bowls with a 100-tael silver note, and the shop owner looked at me like I'd handed him a check for $1 million at a lemonade stand. Couldn't make change. Had to walk to the bank, break my bills into coins, then walk back to pay 24 copper for enough noodles to feed a small army. I had over 400 taels of silver and absolutely nothing worth buying with it. The one thing I actually needed, a way to upgrade my hidden spirit root, required the in-game cash shop, which no longer existed. The universe deleted my credit card terminal. I wanted to throw money at my problems, and my problems said, "Cash not accepted." The real discovery of the day happened back at Dr. Lee's place. This old man who diagnosed me as probably brain damaged that morning turned out to be the most important NPC in the entire game. The legendary medicine merchant who appeared in every city, every dungeon entrance, every corner of the world selling pills to desperate players. And now I understood why. Because I accidentally created him. When I handed him my quest herb, he didn't just complete some pre-programmed recipe. He actually reverse-engineered pill making from scratch. And when the system let me peek at his recipe, it offered to let me learn it. Just like that. Ding! Knowledge downloaded directly into my brain like the world's most convenient college degree. The recipe didn't even disappear from the paper. I could learn things just by looking at them. Broken? Absolutely. Was I complaining? Absolutely not. I warned the old man to keep his pill-making secret. In the game, nobody cared if an NPC sold medicine. But in a real world full of actual cultivators, a normal human possessing immortal-grade pills was basically painting a target on his own forehead. He took the warning seriously, which was smart, because I was pretty sure I looked terrifying while delivering it. Nothing says, "Listen to my advice," like the blood-soaked guy who killed 15 bandits yesterday. Then came the twist that nearly broke my brain. I showed Dr. Lee my health potions and mana potions, basic game items, red and blue pills, and asked if he had any. He said no. But then he got this sparkle in his eye, grabbed the pills, and said he could probably figure out how to make them. This man was about to become the game's biggest drug dealer, and it was entirely my fault. I had accidentally supplied the starter kit for his pharmaceutical empire. The timeline was eating itself. After that mind-bending revelation, I decided to just walk around and enjoy the town. And honestly, it was gorgeous. The real Peace Town had a warmth that no game engine could replicate. Every food stall had real smells, every street had real sounds, and every piece of food had a tiny bit of spiritual energy baked into it, because apparently even the vegetables in a cultivation world are overachievers. I bought everything: meat, spices, rice, candy. I even grabbed candied hawthorn berries on a stick like a 5-year-old at a carnival. The vendors loved me. Turns out people who eat with that much enthusiasm are universally beloved. But when evening came and I walked back to Yi Ningfrost's little house with arms full of groceries, reality hit me like a truck again. She wasn't home yet. And suddenly I was just a guy standing alone in a tiny courtyard in a world where he knew absolutely nobody. No friends, no family, no phone to call anyone, no internet to doom scroll through. Just me and the sunset and a bag full of meat I didn't know how to cook. That loneliness was the worst part. Worse than the danger. Worse than the difficulty level. Just pure, undiluted, I am completely alone in the universe, energy. I sat on the doorstep and stared at nothing until Yi Ningfrost finally came home, saw my mountain of shopping bags, and nearly had a stroke. Are you insane? Did you buy the entire market? Are we not planning to eat tomorrow? But I could tell she was secretly happy, especially when she found the rice. Apparently, she'd been too poor to afford it before I showed up with my bandit bounty money. Dr. Lee had tipped her off that I was probably some kind of former rich kid with expensive taste, so she just sighed, rolled up her sleeves, and started cooking. And for one brief, warm moment, surrounded by the smell of real food in a tiny house in a fictional world on the hardest difficulty setting with no way home, things almost felt okay. Almost. While Yi Ningfrost was cooking dinner, I had a very important strategic meeting with myself about the future. The agenda had exactly one item. What the hell do I do about this woman? See, here's my problem. In the game, Yi Ningfrost was the female lead. Capital T, capital F, capital L. This girl was destined to overthrow demon courts, crush evil empires, and basically become the empress of everything. Her ending was legendary. Her journey to get there? Absolute nightmare fuel. But she always made it through because the storyline demanded it. Players were supposed to tag along for the ride, help her out here and there, watch her grow, feel invested in her story. It was actually pretty cool, until the developers dropped the nastiest plot twist in gaming history. Every male player thought Yi Ningfrost was their love interest. We protected her, fought for her, got emotionally attached. And then boom, the writers paired her up with some pretty boy called the pure young sword immortal. Players were just the cameraman the whole time. The entire male player base collectively lost their minds. The forums turned into a war zone. Girls thought it was romantic. Boys felt personally betrayed. I remember sitting at my computer feeling like I'd been cheated on by someone I was never even dating. Virtual green had energy at its finest. So now I was stuck with a critical question. If this world still followed the game's storyline, then Yi Ningfrost would eventually fall for Sword Boy regardless of what I did. Which meant getting emotionally involved with her was basically volunteering to be a clown. Again, in high definition, with real feelings this time. But, and this was the annoying part, I couldn't just ditch her either. The main storyline quests were tied to her. Those quests meant experience. Experience meant survival. Survival meant not dying on the hardest difficulty in a world that was very much trying to kill me. Then it hit me. The most galaxy-brained realization of my entire life. I didn't need to be the hero. I just needed to be the cameraman. Think about it. In the game, whether players helped or not, Yi Ningfrost handled everything herself eventually. She was the protagonist with full plot armor. All I had to do was hang around close enough to trigger the quest rewards, then step back and let her do all the heavy lifting. Stand nearby, collect experience, contribute nothing. It was the ultimate lazy strategy, and it was perfect. I remembered a comment someone posted about a different game once. You don't understand? I just take a nap, and when I wake up, everything's been solved. Am I not the most powerful character? That was going to be me. Professional bystander. Elite tier spectator. I would despise the cameraman, understand the cameraman, and ultimately become the cameraman. With my brilliant master plan settled, I heard the most beautiful words in any language. Dinner's ready. I rushed over and sat down to eat. But then I noticed Yi Frost just standing there watching me. Not eating. Just standing. Like a waitress at a fancy restaurant. I told her to sit down and eat with me. She refused, something about it. Not being proper. Ancient world etiquette. Men eat, women watch. Very traditional. Very stupid. So I pulled out the nuclear option. Either you sit down and eat, or I dump all this food in the trash. She sat down so fast. Turns out the no wasting food rule beats the women can't eat with men rule every single time. She ate in tiny little bites while sneaking glances at me, and her face was slightly pink the whole time. I pretended not to notice because I was busy inhaling rice like it was oxygen. After stuffing myself, I decided to do the responsible thing and told her I'd find an inn to stay at. We were an unmarried man and woman living under the same roof. In ancient society, that was basically a scandal waiting to happen. I didn't want to ruin her reputation. She immediately burst into tears. Full waterworks. Big fat tears rolling down her face like someone turned on a faucet. She started asking what she did wrong, whether she wasn't good enough, if she'd somehow offended me. And I'm sitting there with chopsticks still in my hand thinking this was not in the game script. There was no, Yi Frost cries because you try to leave, event in any walkthrough I'd ever read. This was uncharted territory. This was improvised NPC behavior. This was a real girl with real abandonment issues whose parents were dead, crying in front of the only person who'd been kind to her recently. I caved in about 4 seconds. Fine, I won't leave. Stop crying. I'm staying. She looked up with her tear-streaked face and hit me with the most devastating really I've ever heard. I could feel my strategic detachment crumbling like a sandcastle in a tsunami. She explained that in Peacetown, repaying kindness was everything. If I left, people would think SHE was the ungrateful one. Then she started rambling and contradicting herself and getting all flustered trying to explain that she wasn't trying to force me to stay, but also please don't leave. It was adorable, and I hated that I noticed. I shut down emotionally. Hard. Went full ice mode. Started mentally chanting, "Do not catch feelings, do not catch feelings," on repeat like a meditation mantra. Because I knew that somewhere out there, a guy called the Pure Yang Sword Immortal was waiting to sweep this girl off her feet. And I refused to be the backup dancer in their love story. After dinner, she washed dishes, made my bed, and basically treated me like royalty. The more I tried to distance myself, the harder she tried. It was an emotional arms race, and I was losing badly. I escaped to the courtyard and just sat there staring at the sky. And honestly, the sky was stunning. The moon was absurdly huge, the stars were thick as glitter, and the spring air smelled like flowers. No light pollution, no car noise, no phone notifications, just pure, ancient, heartbreakingly beautiful silence. She brought me tea. It tasted like the best milk tea I'd ever had, except slightly salty. I told her I preferred sweet. She smiled and said she'd buy sugar tomorrow. Simple exchange. Weirdly domestic. Dangerously comfortable. I went to bed early because without a phone there was literally nothing to do after dark. No scrolling, no videos, no games. Ironic, considering I was inside a game. Just me and the ceiling and the terrifying thought that tomorrow's daily quests might not exist. As I drifted off, I could hear her quietly blowing out candles and tiptoeing to her room. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a small voice whispered that keeping this girl at arm's length was going to be way harder than any boss fight in Hongmeng difficulty. But I squashed that voice immediately. Cameraman protocol. No feelings. Just experience points. Right? First morning in a new world, and my body clock was somehow fixed. Back in reality, I was a nocturnal goblin who hadn't seen a sunrise since middle school. Now, eyes open at dawn like a farm rooster. Apparently, getting ISEKAI'D into a cultivation world is the ultimate sleep schedule reset. Doctors hate this one weird trick. Yi Frost had already made breakfast before I even crawled out of bed. Lean pork congee with salted duck eggs. In this era, that was basically a 5-star hotel brunch. I sat down and started shoveling it in, because manners are a luxury I can't afford when I'm this hungry. And look, I try not to notice, but this girl was unfairly pretty. Even dressed like a village farm girl, she looked like she belonged on a magazine cover. Which made me furious all over again at the game developers. They designed this perfect, sweet, gorgeous female lead, made every male player fall in love with her. and then married her off to some sword-swinging pretty boy named Pure Yang Sword Immortal. Millions of guys felt personally betrayed. The forums almost burned down. The game nearly died. They only survived because the business side of things was too profitable to collapse. For one dangerous second, I thought, hey, this is the real world now. Maybe I could change things. Maybe the storyline isn't set in stone. Maybe I could just win her over before Sword Boy even shows up. Then my survival instincts slapped me across the face. Bad idea. Terrible idea. What if me changing things breaks the main quest line? No main quests means no experience. No experience means no getting stronger. No getting stronger means dying on Hongming difficulty like an idiot who chose love over living. And even worse, what if I pour my heart out, think I've won, and then Pretty Boy appears and she ditches me anyway? I'd be reliving the exact same betrayal, except this time with real emotions instead of gamer rage. Nope. Cameraman strategy. Stay on the edges. Collect rewards. Feel nothing. I put 100 silver taels on the table and told Yi Ningfrost it was for food expenses. Made it very clear, this is payment, not charity, and if she doesn't take it, I'm leaving. She accepted it looking completely lost, like a puppy someone just handed a gold bar to. I walked out before things could get emotional again. Outside, I checked my map and nearly pumped my fist in the air. Daily quests had refreshed. They were real, repeatable, every single day. This was my bread and butter, my reliable experience farm, my reason to keep going. I followed the exclamation mark to the town blacksmith. Big muscular guy, friendly face, recognized me immediately. Little hero, could you hand me that small hammer? I looked at the hammer. It was literally 2 steps away from him. He could reach it without even standing up. This grown man, this absolute unit of a blacksmith, needed me to hand him a hammer that was within arm's reach. This was peak daily quest design. Back in the game, nobody questioned this stuff. But standing here in person, watching a 200-pound ironworker ask for help grabbing something a toddler could fetch, the absurdity was physically painful. But 300 experience is 300 experience. I handed him the hammer with the enthusiasm of a man being paid to breathe. Quest complete. Moving on. Next stop, the martial arts hall. I bought a basic sword technique called Flying Snow Sword. Cost me 5 whole silver taels, which felt like overpaying for what was essentially Sword Fighting for Dummies, Volume 1. But I needed to test something important. Could I still learn skills through the system? I opened the manual. The system chimed. Discovered Mortal Sword Technique, Flying Snow Sword. Learn? Yes. 1,000 times yes. Knowledge flooded my brain like someone poured a textbook directly into my skull. 1 second I knew nothing about swordsmanship. The next second I could execute every move like I'd been training for years. No practice needed. No studying. No montage. Just instant mastery downloaded straight into my muscles. But here's where it got really interesting. I tried removing the skill from my active skill bar. Technically I still knew the moves, but trying to perform them felt clumsy and awkward, like a kid copying martial arts from a movie. The moment I slotted it back into the skill bar, smooth as butter. Perfect execution. Zero lag. Like my body had rehearsed it 10,000 times. And the best part, no cooldown. In the game, skill cooldowns were the bane of every player's existence. You'd unleash your ultimate attack, and then stand there like a mannequin for 30 seconds waiting to use it again. I used to dream about a no cooldown hack. Well, congratulations to me, because apparently getting sucked into the game world came with unlimited skill spam as a free bonus. As long as I had mana, I could swing until the sun burned out. Then I tested experience upgrades. Flying Snow Sword had a little arrow icon. Tap to upgrade. Cost was 300 experience to reach. Small success. Rank. I mentally clicked it and golden light washed over me. The technique evolved. 1 sword strike became 2 consecutive strikes. Faster, sharper, deadlier. But then something unexpected happened. One of my healing pills auto-triggered. My health had apparently dipped below 70%, which meant upgrading the skill had increased my maximum health. And since my current health stayed the same, the ratio dropped and the pill kicked in to top me off. This was huge. Skills didn't just make me fight better. They literally made my body stronger. Health upgrades weren't just numbers on a screen anymore. They were real physical improvements. The healing pills weren't just restoring wounds either. They were basically magical health supplements that improved overall fitness. My body was evolving and my stomach knew it, because I was starving again. Whatever cosmic engine was rebuilding my physique was burning calories like a furnace burns newspaper. I sprinted to the town's restaurant and slammed my hand on the counter like a man ordering his last meal on earth. One of everything. All of it. The owner just grinned. Coming right up, little hero, I proceeded to demolish enough food for a small wedding banquet. Plate after plate after plate disappeared down my throat. Nobody batted an eye. In this town, eating a lot meant you were strong, and being strong meant you were respected. The local martial arts master, a guy named Zhao who ran the fighting school, was actually watching me eat with envy, like I was flexing on him with my appetite. In what universe does eating 12 plates of food earn you social status? This one, apparently, and I was completely fine with that. So the town's martial arts master, old Zhao, had been watching me eat like it was a spectator sport. In this world, appetite equals power. The more you stuff your face, the more people respect you. I was accidentally becoming the most feared man in Peace Town, one bowl of rice at a time. Zhao caught me on my way out and got all awkward and stuttery, which is hilarious when you consider this guy was built like a refrigerator with fists. He explained that a wanted criminal, bounty of 700 taels, had reportedly fled into the nearby area. The local government asked Zhao's martial arts guys to patrol, but everyone was terrified because this criminal was clearly out of their league. Then Zhao watched me devour enough food to feed his entire school and thought, maybe the human vacuum cleaner can help. I was about to politely consider it when my brain exploded. The system didn't just give me a regular quest. It gave me a homing quest. The opening chapter of the main storyline. The big one. The whole enchilada. And absolutely nothing about it made sense. My encyclopedic knowledge of this game told me exactly how this was supposed to go. First, there should have been a wolf hunting quest. Kill some wolves threatening the town. Basic stuff. Then the criminal shows up, kidnaps Yi Ningfrost. Players rescue her, kill the bad guy, and a disciple from the divine sky, sword sect swoops in dramatically from the heavens to look cool and recruit everyone. Very cinematic. Very orderly. Very not what was happening right now. The wolf quest? Gone. Skipped. Deleted from the timeline like it never existed. The criminal who shouldn't arrive for days? Already here. The quest trigger? Some random NPC I'd never heard of instead of the scripted event chain. Everything was scrambled like someone threw the game's storyline into a blender and hit puree. I said yes to Zhao because 1,500 experience and 5 spirit stones were too juicy to refuse, even if the timeline was having a nervous breakdown. He gave me a temporary deputy badge and practically skipped back to his school to share the good news. Adorable man. Terrible judge of danger levels. The second he left, I activated quest tracking on my map. A yellow dot appeared connected by a glowing line showing the criminal's location. He was already in Peace Town. Right now? Today? And the line pointed directly at Yi Ningfrost's house. Every curse word I knew, and several I invented on the spot, flew through my head as I broke into a dead sprint. This was wrong. This was so wrong. In the game, the criminal grabs her days from now, after a whole sequence of events. But the universe apparently decided to speedrun the plot, and nobody told me. My legs pumped harder than they'd ever pumped in either life. Not because I had deep romantic feelings for Yi Ningfrost. I was still firmly committed to Operation Cameraman. Thank you very much. But because if she got hurt, or worse, the main questline could collapse. She was the protagonist. She was my meal ticket. She was the entire reason I had a future in this world. Protecting her wasn't romance. It was financial planning. That's what I told myself while running fast enough to leave skid marks on cobblestone. I reached her house, and the neighborhood was dead silent. Not peaceful silent. Wrong silent. The kind of quiet that means someone knocked out every person within earshot, which is exactly what this psychopath had done. He drugged all the neighbors so nobody could hear screaming. Real thoughtful guy. A true gentleman of crime. Inside, I could hear Yi Ningfrost yelling for help. I kicked the door open so hard it probably needs a funeral and stepped in wearing my most murderous expression. The scene was exactly what I expected, and it still made my blood boil. This ugly, greasy criminal was slowly cornering Yi Ningfrost like a cat playing with a mouse. He wasn't rushing because he enjoyed the fear. This wasn't just a criminal. This was the specific flavor of evil that makes you want to shower after being in the same room. Quick backstory on this guy that I knew from the game. He looted a corpse from some sketchy cultivation sect and found a manual for a forbidden technique. He couldn't actually cultivate because he had no spirit root, but the manual still boosted his physical abilities. The catch? It required him to assault women. So he became a serial predator with supernatural strength. The cultivation world's most disgusting CrossFit program. He turned around, saw me, and then his face did something that made my skin crawl. He smiled. Not a threatening smile. A hungry smile. Because apparently I was too pretty for my own good. 40 minutes of character creation coming back to haunt me in the worst possible way. And this monster's brain immediately went to some dark place I refused to elaborate on. Oh, he said, licking his lips, I just had a very interesting idea. Nope. No, sir. Absolutely not. I have never wanted to kill a quest target more urgently in my entire gaming career. And that includes the raid boss that wiped my team 47 times. Yi Ningfrost scrambled behind me like I was a human shield, stuttering so hard she could barely say, "Young master." I told her to wait outside. "No, I want to stay with you. You're in the way." Dead silence. She looked like I'd slapped her with a dictionary. But I wasn't trying to be mean. I was trying to fight a supernaturally enhanced predator in a tiny room, and I really didn't need to worry about accidentally hitting her with a sword while doing it. The criminal cracked his knuckles. I drew my blade. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I noted that this was technically my first real boss fight in this world. Not some random bandit leader, but an actual storyline villain with forbidden cultivation buffs. My only advantages were a freshly downloaded sword technique, 0 cooldowns, and the kind of rage that turned strategy into violence. Time to see if Flying Snow Sword was worth 5 silver taels. Yi Ningfrost finally shuffled out the door like a sad puppy being told to wait in the car. She went to get Zhao and the doctor, which was smart, because I needed 0 distractions for what was about to happen. Now it was just me and Pimple Face in a tiny room. And let me be honest, I was scared. In the game, I was a god. I could carry an entire raid team through in-game content wearing trash gear and eating snacks with one hand. But this wasn't the game. This guy wasn't going to follow a pre-programmed attack pattern and politely wait while I dodged. He was a real person with real murder experience and a body enhanced by stolen forbidden cultivation techniques. My palms were sweating. My heart was doing drum solos. Meanwhile, Captain Ugly over here wasn't even taking me seriously. He looked at my pretty face, my slim build, my smooth skin, and decided I was about as threatening as a decorative pillow. He apparently knew some basic energy reading technique and could tell my physical stats were above average, but nothing special. In his professional criminal opinion, I was a snack in both senses of the word. Then he said something that made me want to scrub my ears with bleach. I've heard plenty of women scream. Never heard what a man sounds like, though. Lucky you. Today's your special day. My response came out colder than my ice spirit root. Ever heard what you sound like screaming? Because you're about to find out, he laughed. Put his hand on his knife. Got ready to teach me a lesson before doing unspeakable things. And that's when I saw it. A red line, extending from his blade directly toward my body. A trajectory prediction. A ballistic line. Like a laser sight in a shooter game showing me exactly where his next attack would land before he even moved. The combat system was still active, and it had aimbot. In the game, this feature was called the trajectory system. It showed you enemy attack paths so skilled players could dodge perfectly. Most casual players ignored it because the timing was brutal. But me? I was a mechanical monster. I lived for this stuff. This was like handing a Formula One driver the keys to a go-kart and saying, "Have fun." The red line filled up completely. His attack was coming. I sidestepped out of the trajectory zone like I was dodging raindrops. His blade whistled through empty air, and his body blurred past me so fast, he left an afterimage. He ended up behind where I'd been standing, confused, staring at nothing. The look on his face was priceless. Complete system error. Brain not found. He literally could not process how a weak pretty boy had just casually dodged his fastest strike like it was a gentle breeze. While his brain was rebooting, I swung my sword at his exposed back. Credit where it's due, the guy's reflexes were legit. He sensed the danger and leaped away just in time. But now he wasn't smirking anymore. Now he knew something was very wrong about me. He stared at me with this tragic expression, like a kid whose toy just broke. I really wanted to try something fun with you. But since you don't appreciate kindness, you can just die. Kindness? This man called what he was planning kindness. The audacity was so astronomical it briefly distracted me from the murder attempt. He charged again, faster this time, using actual movement techniques. He was certain this attack was undodgeable. And honestly, he was right. It was too fast to sidestep. But I wasn't planning to dodge. Because as he rushed toward me, I saw something else, a yellow circle shrinking on his body, getting smaller and smaller, closing in on a dotted outline. This was the parry mechanic, another game combat feature that survived the transition to reality. Time the circle perfectly, and you deflect any attack, no matter how strong. The yellow ring kissed the dotted line. I swung. Clang. His knife flew out of his hands like it was spring-loaded. His whole body jerked backward, stumbling, arms flailing, completely exposed. The perfect parry had left him staggered and defenseless, standing there like a scarecrow in a windstorm. I activated Flying Snow Sword. First strike. My blade drew a clean silver line across his throat. He grabbed his neck with both hands. Blood poured through his fingers like a broken faucet. His eyes went wide, not with anger, but pure disbelief. He tried to talk, but only managed wet gurgling sounds. Then his knees hit the floor. Then his face. His body twitched a few times and went still. I stood there for a long moment, sword dripping, thinking hard. In the game, this mini-boss took even good players about 2 minutes to kill because of his massive health pool. You'd hack away at him over and over while dodging attacks. But in reality, one clean hit to a vital spot, and he was done. The mountain bandits were the same. Guys who would have taken 5 or 6 sword swings to kill in-game dropped from a single well-placed strike. Reality was simultaneously easier and more terrifying than the game. Easier because enemies actually died like real people when you cut their throats. More terrifying because future enemies would be cultivators and immortals, beings who wouldn't just fall over from a neck wound. And unlike game bosses, they wouldn't politely cycle through 3 attack patterns. They'd think, adapt, improvise. No convenient invincibility shields during screen-wide attacks either. But the combat system, the trajectory lines, the parry circles, those still worked. As long as I had those, I had an edge that nobody in this world could understand or counter. They'd never know I was literally seeing their attacks before they happened. The quest completion chimed. 1,500 experience, 5 spirit stones. Beautiful. Then the next quest loaded. Get my spirit root tested, join the Divine Sky Sword sect. 500 more experience and 3 spirit stones waiting at the finish line. Only problem? The sect's people weren't supposed to be here yet. This whole timeline was scrambled. How was I going to complete a recruitment quest without a recruiter? Then I heard a voice from the rooftop. How did you do that? My heart leaped. I knew that voice. Lu Qingyi, the little sister disciple from the Divine Sky Sword sect. The one who was supposed to show up later, descend dramatically from the sky in a cinematic cut scene, and pretend she'd been on top of things the whole time. She was here, early, just like everything else in this broken timeline. I looked up and my mouth moved before my brain could stop it. Where's your deer? She stared at me. I stared at her. In the game, she always rode a magical deer. It was her signature mount. Every player knew about it. But SHE didn't know that I should know about it, because we had literally never met before this exact second. Her eyes narrowed into suspicious little slits. How do you know I have a deer? My brain screamed every profanity in 2 languages simultaneously. Nice going, genius. First conversation with the sect recruiter, and you've already revealed impossible knowledge. Incredible. Spectacular. 5 stars for self-sabotage. Would you believe me if I said it was intuition? I tried, wearing my most innocent smile. She hopped down from the roof and floated. Floated to the ground like gravity was a suggestion she'd politely declined. Then she stood in front of me, barely reaching my chest, looking up with eyes that said, I don't believe a single word you just said. I looked down at her. She looked up at me. Neither of us spoke. The dead criminal lay between us, leaking quietly onto the floor. A gentle breeze drifted through the kicked-open door. The most awkward silence in the history of 2 worlds stretched on. The main story characters were showing up on schedule, just not the way I remembered. The lowly junior sister from the Divine Sky Sword sect, Lu Qingyi, was standing right in front of me after watching me 2-shot a criminal that should have been way above my pay grade. No dramatic entrance from the clouds. No cinematic cutscene. No magical deer. She just appeared on a rooftop like a cat that learned parkour and then hopped down questioning my entire existence. She was confused, and honestly, I couldn't blame her. From her perspective, she'd just watched a guy with below-average combat stats casually dismantle someone 10 times stronger using nothing but a basic sword technique and reflexes that made no logical sense. She could read energy levels, so she knew I was weaker. But she also watched me dodge a near-invisible attack and parry a full-speed charge like I was swatting a fly. It was like watching a kindergartner beat a heavyweight boxer. Technically impossible, undeniably happening. "How did you do that?" she asked again. I gave her my most charming smile. "You know, I just kinda dodged, then slashed, and he died." She stared at me like I'd just explained quantum physics using sock puppets. Then she hit me with the most random insult possible. "You're a bit rude." I had no idea what She was short. I was standing at full height, towering over her, forcing her to crane her neck like she was watching a plane. I immediately squatted down to eye level. Smooth recovery. Totally intentional. Not embarrassing at all. She pulled out a strange glowing stone and told me to put my hand on it. Spirit root test. The moment of truth, except I already knew the answer. The game's cruelest joke. No matter how godlike your spirit root is, the initial test always shows bottom-tier garbage. My legendary ISEKAI'D sword root. Hidden behind layers of system-mandated mediocrity. The stone glowed weakly with a faint chill. Lower-grade spirit root detected. Exactly as expected, completely infuriating. But Lu Qingyi stared at that stone for way too long. Like she was reading the fine print on a contract written in invisible ink. Something about my result was bugging her, but she didn't say what. Before things could get more awkward, Yi Ningfrost burst through the gate leading a small army of concerned townspeople. She saw me alive and exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since leaving. Then she noticed the tiny girl standing next to me and tensed right back up, probably wondering if I'd found a replacement model. Zhao, the martial arts master, checked the criminal's body, confirmed he was dead, and looked at me with the kind of reverence usually reserved for religious figures. In his mind, killing that guy meant I was probably a grandmaster-level fighter. The town had apparently acquired a celebrity, and everyone was thrilled. Then the sky filled with sword-riding cultivators. A dozen disciples from the Divine Sky Sword sect came streaking through the air on glowing blades, instantly surrounding the courtyard like the world's most dramatic SWAT team. Every single person in Peacetown dropped to their knees. Yi Ningfrost hit the ground so fast, she probably bruised something. Even Zhao went down. The whole town was prostrating before actual immortals like they were meeting gods. I was the only idiot still standing because my gamer brain's first instinct was, "Oh cool, cutscene NPCs," instead of, "Kneel before the flying sword people, you fool." Lu Qingyi finally snapped out of her 1,000-yard stare and scanned the crowd. Her eyes locked onto Yi Ningfrost. "You? Come here." Yi Ningfrost wobbled over like a baby deer learning to walk on ice. Lu Qingyi told her to touch the stone. She did. It glowed soft purple. Xian Ming's spirit root. Another hidden root, another lower-grade reading. But Lu Qingyi nodded like she'd confirmed a delivery she'd been expecting. "Want to join the Divine Sky Sword sect?" Yi Ningfrost looked at me with eyes that screamed, "What do I do?" I nodded so hard I nearly gave myself whiplash. Of course she was joining. She was the main character. The entire world's storyline revolved around her. Me telling her not to join would be like telling the sun not to rise. Pointless, and also I'd lose my quest rewards. She accepted, got her outer disciple token. 3 days to prepare. Then silence. Lu Qingyi turned to leave. And I was just standing there. Squatting there, technically. Tokenless. Uninvited. Watching my ticket to the main questline walk away without so much as a, "Hey, you two. Excuse me? I killed the criminal. I literally completed the quest that you were supposed to handle. I did your homework. And you're just going to recruit the girl and leave the guy who actually saved the day? In what world?" "Oh right, this world, which apparently hates me specifically." I stared at Lu Qingyi. She stared back. Another one of our signature awkward silences descended like a fog. I could feel the townspeople's second-hand embarrassment from across the yard. After what felt like 3 geological ages, she wordlessly handed me a token. I blinked. "You're not going to ask if I'm willing?" "You're willing," she said, completely deadpan. She was right, and I hated that she was right. But something was deeply off about this girl. In the game, she was a bratty, pouty, Cinderella little princess. Cute tantrums, adorable stubbornness, the works. The real Lu Qingyi? Cold, sharp, perceptive in a way that made my spine tingle. She had the energy of a tiny empress who could see through walls and was judging everything behind them. Then she proved exactly how scary she was. Why do I feel like you already know me? And why does my behavior seem to not match your expectations? My blood turned to ice water. This miniature psychic just read my entire internal monologue off my face. She couldn't read minds. She told me that much. But apparently, I had the poker face of a glass window. Every thought I'd ever had was playing on my forehead like a movie screen. Also, she added casually, you feel like you don't belong to this world. Cold sweat. Rivers of it. Niagara Falls amounts. This girl was operating on a frequency that the game version of her couldn't even receive. One conversation in, and she'd nearly figured out my biggest secret. I stammered something about being sheltered and well-fed my whole life. She responded with the coldest, most disbelieving chuckle I'd ever heard. A nearby disciple on a flying sword reminded me that speaking so casually to a senior cultivator was basically asking to be squished like a bug, and that I was lucky Lu Qingyi was nice. Nice. The word, nice, and that girl existed in different zip codes. She told me to keep acting exactly how I was acting, since apparently my complete ignorance of etiquette saved her the trouble of teaching me how to behave. Then, she gave us both 3 days to prepare and flew away in a perfect V formation with her sword squad, disappearing into the sky like a flock of extremely lethal geese. I wiped my forehead. The townsfolk swarmed in with congratulations. Handshakes, bows, cheers. I smiled and nodded while internally replaying the exact moment a child-sized cultivator almost exposed me as an interdimensional fraud. 3 days until I entered the sect. 3 days to figure out how to survive in a school for immortals while hiding the fact that I was a time-displaced gamer with cheat codes and 0 social skills. What could possibly go wrong? So I got my token. The flying sword squad disappeared into the sky like a flock of weaponized geese, and the townspeople congratulated me so hard I thought they'd dislocate my shoulders from all the handshaking. Great. Wonderful. I was officially a future disciple of the Divine Sky Sword sect. 3 days to prepare. 3 days to pretend I wasn't a dimension-hopping fraud with forbidden knowledge about everyone's future. But while I was busy being celebrated by every farmer and noodle vendor in Peace Town, I had absolutely zero idea what was happening at the little tavern down the street. And honestly, it's probably better that I didn't know, because I would have had a panic attack. See, what I found out much later was that Lu Qingyi's entire squad was sitting in that tavern having a very serious discussion about yours truly. One of her junior brothers, the same guy who'd threatened to squash me like a bug earlier, apparently couldn't understand why she'd recruited me at all. Their mission was to pick up Yi Ningfrost. One person, specific target, preordained by their sect ancestors' prophecy. And then this random noodle-eating weirdo with a garbage-tier spirit root stumbles in and gets a token too? Lu Qingyi apparently brushed it off. One more outer disciple, one less, who cares? Which sounds casual until you realize that in this sect, when this tiny girl says something, even the headmaster shuts up and takes notes. She wasn't the youngest core disciple for nothing. She was basically running half the sect's operations from behind the scenes. Their ancestors' prophecy literally called her half the sky, half the sky. This pint-sized terror I'd accidentally called rude was one of the most powerful political figures in the entire cultivation world. And I'd asked her where her deer was within 5 seconds of meeting her. Outstanding first impression from me, truly. But here's where it got really wild. Her junior brother pointed out that Yi Ningfrost seemed to have feelings for me, and that could be a problem since she was supposed to be the destiny bearer, the prophesied person who'd reshape the entire world. Destiny bearers aren't supposed to get distracted by pretty boys with low-grade spirit roots. Bad for the cosmic plan. Now, any normal sect leader would have immediately plotted to separate us. Forbid contact. Assign us to opposite ends of the mountain. Classic cultivation world power move. Lu Qingyi's response. She was worried about me, not Yi Ningfrost, me. Her logic was that people carrying world-altering destiny tend to bring misfortune to everyone around them. Getting close to a destiny bearer when you don't have matching cosmic luck is basically hugging a lightning rod during a thunderstorm. She wasn't afraid I'd corrupt the prophecy girl. She was afraid the prophecy girl would destroy MY life. Her disciples were completely baffled. Shouldn't we worry about him ruining her future? and Lu Qingyi was over there thinking, no, I'm worried about her ruining his future. The woman had her priorities so backwards they'd come full circle into being right. Then she did something that would have made me soil my ancient robes if I'd been watching. She pulled up my background check. Full investigation. Everything. Turns out, I had a complete history in this world. Orphaned from a fallen family. Joined a martial arts school. Everybody said I had terrible talent, but I kept breaking through faster than anyone expected. Then I ran into some demonic cultivator, got chased off a cliff, and Yi Ningfrost found me and nursed me back to health. A backstory I never wrote. A life I never lived. A perfectly crafted cover story that explained every weird thing about me. The mysterious skills, the amnesia, the bunny hopping, all wrapped up in a neat little tragic hero package. Whether the system generated this, or whether I'd genuinely replaced someone who already existed, I still had no idea. And thinking about it made my brain itch in uncomfortable ways. Lu Qingyi compared my file to Yi Ningfrost's, and had a moment that I'm told involved a lot of suspicious squinting. Because on paper, I looked more like a destiny bearer than the actual prophesied destiny bearer. Orphan? Check. Mysterious past? Check. Impossible abilities that defy explanation? Triple check. Lost memories? Chef's kiss. I was a walking cliché of main character backstory, and it was apparently making Lu Qingyi question whether her ancestor had gotten the prophecy wrong for the first time in history. So she did what any reasonable immortal cultivator would do. She pulled out 3 magic coins and tried to divine my future. First reading, completely ordinary. She didn't buy it. Tried again, more carefully. Second reading, completely ordinary, with a weird pause in the middle that changed the meaning to something like complete. Ordinary, which could mean entirely ordinary or completely beyond ordinary, depending on how you read it. Third try. Completely ordinary, now with an exclamation mark energy that made it sound sarcastic. The fortune-telling equivalent of asking someone, "How are you?" and getting back, "Fine, fine," and "Oh, I'm fine," in increasingly suspicious tones. The universe was trolling her, and she knew it. Meanwhile, reading Yi Ningfrost's fortune nearly blinded her. The results were basically a highlight reel of the most epic achievements possible, overthrowing dark empires, ending apocalyptic eras, becoming the first female empress in all of eternity, saving civilization itself. Her destiny was so bright it came with a lens flare warning. Her junior brother smugly pointed out that the ancestor's prophecy was clearly correct. Yi Ningfrost was the real deal. Maybe they should separate us. Lu Qingyi shut that down immediately. He's my sect's disciple now. Nobody mocks him, nobody interferes. If they decide on their own that they're not right for each other, that's their business. We don't play matchbreaker. That tiny girl had more integrity in her pinky finger than most sect leaders had in their entire cultivated bodies. She couldn't figure me out. The universe refused to give her a straight answer about my future, and instead of treating me as a threat, she just said, "He's one of ours now. Deal with it." Of course, I knew none of this at the time. I was probably somewhere in Peace Town eating my 14th meal of the day, completely oblivious to the fact that the most perceptive cultivator in the region had just tried to read my fortune and gotten the cosmic equivalent of, "This number cannot be reached." And then, from her tavern window, Lu Qingyi saw something in the street that made her brain freeze completely. Something so ridiculous it broke her legendary composure. What did she see? I have a terrible, sinking feeling it was me doing something embarrassing. It was definitely me doing something embarrassing. My quest to join the Divine Sky Sword sect hit a snag. The second chapter of the prologue quest didn't complete when I got the token. Probably needed to physically arrive at the sect first. Annoying, but actually a blessing in disguise. Peace Town was safe. The sect would be dangerous. And I was on the hardest difficulty in a world that was no longer a game. Every extra day grinding easy quests here was a day I wasn't getting murdered up on Immortal Mountain. But the missing wolf quest was eating at me. In the game, a massive wolf pack was supposed to attack Peace Town. Behind the scenes, someone was deliberately sending those wolves to force the sect to investigate, which is how they discover Yi Ningfrost. That was the real prologue trigger. And the reward? The Wolf King's Remnant Soul, an incredibly valuable item that led you to a secret dungeon, your first money farming spot, and eventually became your first pet companion. Gone. All of it. Poof. The wolves never came. The soul never dropped. My first dungeon, my first pet, my first reliable income source, deleted from the timeline like a typo. If this were still a game, losing that stuff would sting but wouldn't kill me. Whales just throw money at the problem. Drop a few $100 and you skip the entire early game. But I wasn't a whale anymore. I was a broke, interdimensional refugee whose credit card didn't work across realities. Every scrap of experience mattered now. So I made a plan. Grind daily quests in Peace Town until I had at least 10,000 experience banked before setting foot in the sect. Without that cushion, I'd hit a wall the second I arrived. And in a world where getting stuck didn't mean frustration, it meant death. I couldn't afford to be underprepared. Luckily, completing the prologue's first chapter had unlocked a beautiful explosion of blue exclamation marks across my map. Side quests everywhere. I nearly wept with joy. Back when I was a professional player, I wouldn't have glanced at these piddly little errands. Too busy speedrunning in-game content. But now, these tiny blue markers were my lifeline. My precious little experience piñatas. I loved every single one of them. There was just one problem. I couldn't skip dialogue anymore. In the game, every quest giver had a speech. You'd click through it instantly. Skip, 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 accept, done. But real people don't have skip buttons. They just talk at you for minutes, explaining the full emotional backstory of why they need 3 bundles of firewood or whatever. So I developed a technique. I'd stand there with a polite expression while my brain completely checked out. Eyes glazed, soul departed, astral projecting to a happier dimension. The quest giver would finish their 5-minute monologue about their grandmother's herb garden, and I'd snap back to reality with a cheerful, "Got it," before sprinting away at maximum velocity. The beautiful thing was, I didn't need to listen. The quest tracker told me exactly what to do and where to go. The system was still feeding me objectives. These people could have been reading me a cookbook, and it wouldn't have changed my completion time by a single second. But maximum velocity is where things went sideways. See, I'd been trying to walk like a normal human being. Blend in, not attract attention. Very mature, very responsible. That lasted about 45 minutes. The quests were scattered all over town, and walking between them was killing my efficiency. So I did what any self-respecting gamer would do when optimization calls. I went full speedrun mode. Sprint, dash, jump. Sprint, dash, jump, jump, jump. Climb walls. Vault fences. Scale buildings. Shortcut through alleys. Leap across rooftops. If there was a faster path that involved going over something instead of around it, I took it without a moment's hesitation. Peace Town watched in horror as their beloved little hero transformed into a human pinball. Bouncing off every surface like gravity was a mild inconvenience. Yi Ningfrost saw me rocket past her courtyard and just sighed with the tired acceptance of a woman who'd given up on my sanity days ago. He's having another episode. She told nobody in particular. But here's the thing nobody could argue with. I was fast. Terrifyingly fast. Quests that should have taken an hour were done in 15 minutes. I'd accept a task, vanish in a blur of jumping and climbing, and return with it completed before the quest giver finished their tea. They thought I was insane, but they also couldn't deny the results. Every job done perfectly. Every delivery placed exactly right. Then came the cargo quest. A shipment arrived at the town dock. Heavy crates needed moving. I threw one on my shoulder and started bunny hopping to the storage building at twice the speed of the actual dock workers. Bounce, 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 drop crate in perfect alignment, bounce back for the next one. The crates I stacked looked like they'd been arranged by a machine. Perfectly even, perfectly spaced, satisfying enough to make an architect cry. What I didn't know was that the cargo was going to the tavern where Lu Qingyi and her entire sword squad were staying, which meant a dozen elite cultivators had front row seats to watch their newest recruit hop past the window, carrying furniture like a caffeinated frog. Apparently, every single disciple turned to Lu Qingyi with the same unspoken question. "Sister, is your new recruit?" Okay, Lu Qingyi, bless her terrifying little heart, actually defended me. Look past the hopping. His speed is double a normal person's. And look at how those crates are stacked. Perfectly organized despite him seemingly throwing them randomly. That's not chaos. That's precision disguised as madness. The disciples looked closer and realized she was right. Then one of them tried bunny hopping himself. It was faster, but after 30 seconds he was gasping for air and clutching his knees. Meanwhile, I'd been doing it for hours without breaking a sweat. What kind of monster stamina does this guy have? They whispered in genuine awe. Then more of them started trying it. Soon an entire squad of elite sword cultivators was hopping around the tavern district like a troop of confused kangaroos. And Lu Qingyi was sitting by the window watching her dignified disciples make complete fools of themselves, rubbing her temples and quietly reconsidering every choice that led to this moment. Somewhere below, completely unaware that I'd accidentally started a bunny-hopping cult among immortal sword masters, I was already 3 quests ahead and climbing somebody's chimney to grab a quest item off their roof. The sword disciples tried bunny-hopping for about 5 minutes before quitting. 2 reasons. It looked absolutely ridiculous and ruined their whole mystical immortal warrior aesthetic, and it burned through stamina like a bonfire through tissue paper. They'd need to use actual spiritual energy just to sustain it, which was like driving a Ferrari to the mailbox. Technically possible, monumentally stupid. But at least they finally respected me. Not for my garbage-tier spirit root. Not for my sword skills. For my cardio. In a world of immortal cultivators who could fly on swords and punch through mountains, I had earned recognition for being really, really good at not getting tired. My mother would be so proud if she existed in this dimension. Meanwhile, Lu Qingyi's magical deer finally showed back up, so she did have one. I knew it. Except it had shrunk itself down to the size of a hamster for stealth purposes. The little thing spat out a glowing pearl from its mouth like the world's most magical cat coughing up a hairball. Turns out it was a demon soul, a high-quality one that could be used to create a spirit pet if you fed it enough rare materials. Lu Qingyi's first thought was to give it to Yi Ningfrost, because of course it was. The sect had a whole red carpet rolled out for Miss Destiny Bearer. VIP treatment. First-class ticket on the Prophecy Express. Then she glanced down at me, currently bouncing past her window carrying boxes like a deranged delivery man, and apparently felt something I can only describe as cultivator's guilt. She knew what was waiting for me at the sect. Absolutely nothing. A low-grade spirit root meant 0 attention, 0 resources, 0 support. Yi Ningfrost would get the royal treatment, while I'd be eating dirt in the outer disciple slums wondering where my life went wrong. Which, to be fair, I could answer precisely. It went wrong when I clicked confirm without reading the terms and conditions. So Lu Qingyi decided to throw me a bone. A pity quest. A charity mission disguised as a task. What a saint. She sent me a voice transmission, words materializing on a floating flower in front of my face like the universe's most extra text message, and asked when I'd be done working. At that exact moment, my system went absolutely berserk. Purple quest marker. Glowing guideline. The words every gamer dreams about. Rare encounter quest unlocked. My heart nearly detonated. Rare encounter quests were the jackpot, special missions that dropped unique items you couldn't get anywhere else. And I had never triggered one in Peacetown during all my years of playing. This was completely new territory. Uncharted content. A secret I'd missed across thousands of hours of gameplay, and it took getting literally sucked into the game world to finally discover it. I traced the guideline with my eyes, and it pointed straight at Lu Qingyi sitting by her window. Our gazes met. She seemed surprised I'd located her so quickly, which, yeah, I had a giant glowing arrow pointing at your face. It wasn't exactly detective work. I dropped my last crate, collected my 500 experience for the delivery quest, and launched myself upstairs. 2 sword disciples blocked me at the door with crossed blades like bouncers at the world's most dangerous nightclub. I bowed politely, Lu Qingyi waved me in, and I practically teleported to her table. She sat there sipping tea, clearly trying to set up some kind of mysterious mentor moment. You know the vibe. Wise elder, cryptic words, dramatic pauses. She wanted to be cool about it. I ruined everything in 3 seconds. What do you need me to do, senior sister? Her face twitched. I could practically see the internal screaming. She'd been winding up for a whole mystical speech, and I'd just fast-forwarded through her cutscene like she was a regular quest NPC. Which, from my perspective, she technically was. Sorry not sorry. I had a rare encounter quest burning a hole in my brain and 0 patience for atmospheric pacing. She recovered with impressive composure and told me to go find something called Shadow Soul Grass. She'd spotted it on the way to Peacetown and wanted me to retrieve it. Got it. On my way. I turned and bolted for the door before she finished her sentence. Behind me, I'm told Lu Qingyi had a small crisis. She'd planned to give me a protective jade token in case I ran into danger. She'd planned to brief me on what threats lurked near the grass. She'd planned to at least tell me where it was. But I was already gone, sprinting down the stairs 3 at a time, because the quest tracker was feeding me navigation data, and I didn't need any of that information. She sat there holding an unused safety charm, watching me disappear, probably questioning whether she'd just sent an idiot to his death. Her good deed had backfired spectacularly. She'd wanted to seem generous, and instead she'd potentially committed manslaughter by negligence. Go protect him, she ordered a disciple. Secretly, don't let him die. That poor disciple chased after me like a babysitter pursuing a toddler who'd learned to run. What Lu Qingyi didn't understand was that I was the opposite of worried. This quest pointed me to a dungeon I knew inside and out. I'd farmed this place hundreds of times in the game. Every trap placement, every enemy spawn, every hidden chest, memorized. The dungeon contained a beginner-grade spirit weapon that would massively boost my combat power. And now there was also this shadow soul grass that I'd apparently picked up once during gameplay and then thrown away. Because I never knew it was important. Years of playing, and only now, as a real person standing in a real graveyard, did I learn it was a quest item this whole time. The dungeon entrance was in a graveyard outside town. Creepy? Sure. But creepy graveyards are basically convenience stores in cultivation worlds. Everything useful is buried in one. I arrived and started rearranging oddly patterned stones into specific positions. Left one here, right one there. Third one rotated 45 degrees on the north marker. The entrance mechanism was a puzzle I'd solved so many times my hands moved on autopilot. Behind me, the hidden sword disciple assigned to protect me was apparently watching with his jaw on the floor, because from his perspective, some random mortal had just walked into an ancient burial ground and started manipulating a concealed formation array like he'd built it himself. Which, emotionally speaking, I basically had. Thousands of runs. Thousands of resets. This graveyard was more familiar to me than my own apartment back in the real world. And unlike my apartment, this place actually had treasure inside. I stepped through that dungeon gate like a man walking into his own living room. Which, emotionally, it was. I'd run this dungeon so many times in the game that I could navigate it blindfolded, drunk, and upside down. Every creepy courtyard, every haunted hallway, every ghost spawn point, burned into my brain like a childhood phone number. Behind me, the gate slammed shut and vanished. Somewhere outside, Lu Qingyi's babysitter disciple was probably having a full-blown cardiac event. I found out later that the poor guy tried everything to reopen the entrance, rearranging stones, kicking things, probably crying, and nothing worked. The dungeon had locked behind me like a nightclub that only admits one idiot at a time. He sent an emergency message to Lu Qingyi basically saying, "Your new recruit ran into a mysterious underground death dimension and I couldn't stop him. Please don't skin me alive." Fantastic start for everyone involved. Inside, I was having the time of my life. The dungeon looked exactly like the game version. Same gloomy courtyard. Same creepy atmosphere. Same undead servants standing around like they were waiting for a dinner party that ended 3 centuries ago. When they heard me cackling like a lunatic, because I genuinely couldn't contain my excitement, they all turned toward me with glowing dead eyes and hostile intent. I pulled out my sword and went grocery shopping. These ghost servants were absolute pushovers. Slow, predictable, fragile. I carved through them like a hot knife through spiritual butter. Each one popped for 10 experience points, which doesn't sound like much until you realize I was killing them faster than a popcorn machine makes popcorn. 100 points before I'd even broken a sweat. This was the cultivation world equivalent of grinding low-level mobs in a starter zone. Except every kill actually mattered because I was desperately hoarding experience like a squirrel before winter. I slashed my way to the main courtyard, and then something deeply weird happened. My heart started pounding. Not from fear, I wasn't scared. But my body froze in place like someone had pressed pause on my legs. 3 steps into the courtyard, and I just stopped. Then it hit me. A cutscene. A cutscene. In real life. The game's boss introduction cinematic was somehow playing out in physical reality, and my body had decided to participate by standing perfectly still like I was watching a movie trailer at the theater. This world wasn't supposed to have cutscenes. This was reality. But apparently my nervous system disagreed. because every instinct was screaming, danger approaching, do not move, in exactly the same way the game used to lock your character in place for dramatic effect. Red fog exploded from the main hall. Then came the laughter. That horrible, screeching, nails-on-a-chalkboard cackle that I'd heard 1,000 times through my headphones and was now hearing with my actual ears in an actual haunted mansion standing 3 feet from actual danger. A living person. I smell a living person. Out of the fog stepped the boss. 7 feet tall. Blood-red wedding dress. Bare feet. Flaming red veil on her head. Left hand holding a sword. Right hand holding a severed head that looked freshly decapitated. Eyes still open. Still crying blood tears. Still looking terrified. The full horror movie package. Except I was in the movie and the monster was looking at me like I was room service. She tilted her head sideways, which is never a good sign from anything in a red dress, and grinned. Oh my, what a handsome little gentleman. Darling husband. She lifted the severed head like a puppet. I'm almost tempted to cheat on you. Cool. Great. My custom sculpted face was attracting unwanted attention from the living and the dead. Character creation was the gift that kept on giving in the worst possible ways. The cutscene released me, and I could move again. I rolled my shoulders, cracked my neck, and had a brief philosophical moment wondering whether that freeze was a leftover game mechanic or just my body's natural terror response to a 7-foot ghost bride waving a severed head around. Interesting question. Would answer later. Currently busy. I charged. She swung her sword at me, and I triggered a perfect parry. Clang. Her weapon nearly flew out of her hand, and her whole body rocked backward. The look on her ghostly face was priceless. A floating question mark practically materialized above her head. In her centuries of haunting this dungeon, nobody had ever deflected her opening attack like it was a gentle suggestion. Then I went to work. No cooldowns meant I could spam Flying Snow Sword until my arms fell off, so I just started hacking at her legs, her sides, her arms, anywhere my blade could reach. It felt like cutting into rock, significantly harder than slicing human flesh, which made sense because she was an undead spirit creature and not, technically, made of meat. But the cuts still drew blood, thick, black, disgusting blood that oozed from dozens of tiny wounds. She screamed and swept her blade horizontally. I backflipped over it, a move I didn't even know I could do until my body just did it. And as I landed, something activated. A blue glow wrapped around my sword. Dodge counter. Another game mechanic that still worked. My blade shot forward with terrifying speed and buried itself in her torso. Crack. Something inside her shattered like glass. Her entire body went limp. Strength drained out of her like water from a bathtub. She dropped to her knees, still clutching her sword, trembling and confused. I didn't give her a second to recover. Flying Snow Sword. Again and again and again. No cooldowns meant my blade became a continuous stream of white light threading through her body like a sewing machine from hell. It was actually kind of beautiful in a watch me obliterate an ancient evil with unlimited spam attacks kind of way. She went berserk. Sonic Scream attack, the one that used to hit every player in the game regardless of position. But I was already running backward before she even opened her mouth, creating enough distance that the sound waves fizzled out before reaching me. In the game, you needed a special shield for that attack. In reality, you just needed legs and common sense. Her veil fell off. She swallowed the severed head whole, which was the signal I knew all too well. Phase 2. In the game, reaching Phase 2 on this boss meant you were roughly halfway through a grueling fight. But I'd gotten here in what felt like 90 seconds. Every mechanic that made this boss difficult in the game, health pools, cooldown timers, unavoidable screen-wide attacks, was either gone or laughably easy to counter in reality. I tightened my grip on my sword and grinned. This is easier than the game. Somewhere outside, a sword disciple was frantically trying to dig through solid earth to rescue me from a dungeon I was already winning. Phase 2 kicked in, and this ghost bride went full body horror on me. She swallowed that severed head like a snake eating an egg. Then her lower half exploded into a lotus flower made entirely of blood and meat. Her upper body got skinnier, her face sprouted creepy veins, and her sword literally fused into her arm through some disgusting flesh tentacle situation. She looked like a haunted wedding cake designed by someone who hates happiness. Then she pointed at me and said, "Human, die." with all the dramatic flair of a theater kid who'd been waiting centuries for this moment. Her sword came down and launched an actual energy wave at me. A sword beam. This lady was firing ranged attacks now, and the trajectory line gave me maybe half a second of warning, twice as fast as the game version. My butt clenched so hard I could have crushed diamonds. I dodged. Barely. Then she went absolutely psychotic. Die, 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 just die already. Sword beams everywhere. She was swinging like a blender set to maximum, launching energy slashes in every direction. The whole courtyard was turning into a laser grid of death. Any normal person would have been sliced into deli meat within 3 seconds. But I wasn't normal. I was a professional dodger with a cheat code combat system and 10,000 hours of muscle memory. After the first few swings, I found her rhythm. Her attacks were fast, but still followed patterns I'd memorized from hundreds of runs. My body weaved through the gaps like thread through a needle. Left, right, duck, roll, jump, slide. I was dancing with death and leading every step. And then I discovered something that nearly made me scream with joy mid-combat. Invincibility frames. The dodge system had iframes. That tiny window during a perfect dodge where absolutely nothing can touch you. It existed here. In reality, a physical law of the universe had apparently been overwritten to give me brief moments of complete invulnerability every time I dodged at the right moment. This changed everything. Invincibility frames in later raids and boss fights were the difference between impossible and watch me solo this while eating a sandwich. If this mechanic scaled into cultivation-level combat, I could theoretically dodge attacks from beings 100 times stronger than me. The future suddenly looked a lot less terrifying. But back to the murder at hand. I triggered a dodge counter, that beautiful blue glow mechanic, and my body practically teleported in front of her. My sword came down wreathed in light and slammed into her torso. Crack. That glass-shattering sound again. Her whole body locked up, staggered, frozen, defenseless. Flying snow sword. No cooldowns. Full spam. I became a white streak of light circling her body like a very angry electron. Slash after slash after slash. Black blood spraying everywhere with each hit, painting the walls, the floor, the ceiling, and most importantly me. That's when reality punched me in the nose. Literally, through my nose. The smell. In the game, killing a boss meant watching health bars drain and collecting loot. In reality, killing an undead monster meant being drenched head to toe in rotting ghost blood that smelled like a dumpster had a baby with a sewer. The stench was so catastrophically awful that I actually stopped attacking because my stomach was staging a violent revolution. I was mid-combo when my body went, nope, we're gagging now, combat is cancelled. I stumbled backward, trying not to vomit on my own sword, and the boss seized her opportunity. She ran away. She ran away. I stood there, dripping with black blood, sword raised, mouth hanging open, watching a 7-foot ghost bride in a meat lotus dress sprint away from me. In 10 years of playing this game, across thousands of boss fights, I had never, not once, seen a boss just turn tail and flee. Bosses fight to the death. That's the whole point. They stand there and let you kill them because the code demands it. But this wasn't code anymore. This was a real creature with a real survival instinct. And her survival instinct was screaming at her to get as far away from the blood-soaked maniac as physically possible. I'd beaten her so badly that she'd rather abandon her own haunted mansion than spend one more second fighting me. I slapped myself across the face. Hard. She has a brain, you idiot. Of course she runs. This isn't a game. Stop being surprised when things act alive. But sympathy wasn't on my to-do list today. She had a sword fused to her arm. A beginner spirit weapon that I desperately needed. And behind her was a fat chunk of kill experience that I was not leaving on the table. Get back here, you ghost. I chased her through the crumbling mansion, covered in her own blood, looking like something that crawled out of a nightmare's nightmare. She glanced back and her already pale face went somehow whiter. Sir, we can talk about this. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. Just please. I shook my head. No deals. I needed that sword and I needed that experience. Nothing personal. Strictly business. Is there really no room for negotiation? She shrieked. Absolutely none. She bolted into the main hall and slammed the door shut. Red fog swirled around it like a "Do not enter" sign made of despair. I kicked the door so hard it exploded into splinters. Found her cowering in the corner like a cat hiding from bath time. A 7-foot undead abomination, shaking with terror, cornered by a teenager covered in blood who was smiling. In fairness, I probably looked like the final boss of her story. Found you. She threw her sword at my feet, literally surrendered her weapon, then did something I never saw coming. She self-destructed, just disassembled herself into pieces and vanished. The ultimate rage quit. She'd rather explode than let me have the satisfaction of the kill. The dungeon started collapsing around me, ceiling crashing, walls crumbling, the whole dramatic disaster movie sequence. I scrambled around grabbing everything I could, scooped up the shadow soul grass, snatched the spirit sword off the ground, and stuffed it all into my inventory 2 seconds before a beam of light wrapped around me and yanked me out of the collapsing dimension like the universe hitting the eject button. What I didn't know, and would have found hilarious, was that she survived. The sneaky witch had used some kind of miniaturization escape technique, shrunk herself down to the size of a thumb, and hid in the rubble until I was gone. She poked her tiny head out, looked around, whispered, "Thank God he's gone," and burrowed underground to flee to a different continent. I'd scared an ancient undead spirit so badly she became a refugee. Career highlight. Outside, I checked my earnings. 2,500 experience from the dungeon alone, small fry ghosts, boss damage, completion bonus. Combined with everything else, I was rocketing toward my 10,000 experience goal. One rare encounter quest turned in away from crossing the finish line. Not bad for a guy whose fortune readings said, completely ordinary. I popped out of the collapsing dungeon like a blood-soaked jack-in-the-box and immediately locked eyes with Lu Qingyi, who was sitting on her magical deer. So she did have the deer, I knew it, staring at me with an expression that said, "What in the actual hell am I looking at?" Fair reaction. I was drenched head to toe in black ghost blood, holding a rusty spirit sword, grinning like a serial killer at a hardware store. Behind me, the dungeon entrance was crumbling into nothing. I'd gone in as a regular mortal and come out looking like I'd lost a fight with a paint factory that exclusively manufactured nightmare juice. "Greetings, senior sister," I said cheerfully, bowing with all the dignity a blood-soaked teenager could muster. The disciple next to her scanned me with his spiritual sense and his brain visibly short-circuited. Because the ghosts in that dungeon were equivalent to first-realm cultivators, actual supernatural beings that should have turned a mortal like me into a light snack. And here I was, not only alive, but completely uninjured, not even breathing hard, just vibing, covered in someone else's blood like it was a fashion choice. What I didn't know at the time was that Lu Qingyi had watched the entire fight. She'd rushed over in a panic after her babysitter disciple reported that I'd vanished into a sealed dimension, and she'd apparently been so furious she nearly decapitated the poor guy. "I told you to watch him, and you couldn't even do that." The dude was probably reconsidering his career choices. She'd arrived ready to tear the dungeon open with her bare hands to rescue me. Instead, she found a front-row seat to the most confusing martial arts performance in cultivation history. A mortal with garbage-tier spiritual energy casually dismantling an undead boss using techniques that shouldn't exist. From her expert perspective, my dodge mechanics looked like superhuman danger sense. My parry system looked like unity of human and sword, an advanced concept that masters spend decades achieving. And my overall combat attitude, that relaxed, almost bored efficiency, apparently gave off transcendent emperor potential energy. Which is hilarious because I was just playing a video game inside my head. She was watching Street Fighter inputs and interpreting them as ancient martial philosophy. My dodge roll was apparently a profound movement art. My spam clicking was effortless sword mastery. This world was going to give me credit I absolutely did not deserve, and I was going to accept every bit of it without blinking. She asked if I'd found the Shadow Soul Grass. I handed it over immediately, quest item delivered, awaiting reward. Please and thank you. She caught the herbs mid-air with a casual wave, because cultivators don't use their hands like peasants. Then she tossed me a storage pouch. I opened it, and my soul nearly left my body. 100 spirit stones. A Wolf King demon soul. A freaking storage bag that expanded my inventory by 20 slots. And 5,000 experience points from the quest completion alone. 5,000. The dungeon had already given me 2,500. Combined with everything I'd earned that day, I'd blown past my 10,000 experience goal like it was a speed bump. I was rich. Experience rich. The kind of rich that made me want to roll around on the ground laughing. But the Wolf King soul, that was the real prize. The same demon soul I thought was permanently lost when the wolf quest got deleted from the timeline. It had found its way back to me through a completely different route. Lu Qingyi's deer had apparently hunted down the Wolf King on its own, collected the soul, and brought it back as a souvenir. Then Lu Qingyi, out of pure generosity, just handed it to me like it was spare change. She had no idea she'd just filled the biggest hole in my survival strategy. Then she did something even more insane. She reached out her hand and my dungeon sword, the rusty spirit weapon the ghost bride had dropped, flew to her like an obedient puppy. Her finger traced along the blade, and black corruption peeled off in wisps of smoke. Then golden light wrapped around the whole thing, burning away centuries of rust and decay. And when the glow faded, I was holding a completely different weapon. An ice blue spirit sword. Flawless, gleaming, cold mist curling off the edge like it was forged from a glacier. She'd purified it, refined it, and added ice attribute enhancement. In about 15 seconds. Casually, like she was brushing lint off a jacket. Consider it compensation for the dangerous task, she said, as if she hadn't just handed me what was essentially an in-game quality starter weapon that would carry me through multiple cultivation realms. I was speechless. In the game, getting gear this good at my level would have required either insane luck or dropping hundreds of real dollars in the cash shop. Lu Qingyi had just given me the free-to-play equivalent of a whale's equipment loadout. I wanted to build a shrine in her honor. She also casually mentioned that nobody in the Divine Sky Sword sect would dare steal from me. Whoever tries to take what belongs to our sect's disciples, well, they'll learn why that's a terrible idea. We welcome the attempt. She said this with the energy of someone who genuinely hoped a thief would try, just so the sect could make an example. Terrifying girl. Wonderful patron. 10 out of 10 would accept charity sword from again. Her companion disciple, the one she'd nearly executed for losing track of me, gave me his personal contact Jade before leaving. If you need anything at the sect, just ask. Then he flew away on his sword, probably relieved that this whole disaster had ended with a promotion instead of a funeral. I walked back to Peace Town with a new sword, a storage bag full of treasures, enough experience to fund my entire early cultivation career, and a demon soul that would eventually become my first spirit pet. Everything I needed. All of it handed to me by a tiny girl who couldn't figure out why her fortune-telling kept calling me ordinary. Back in her tavern, Lu Qingyi was apparently having a crisis. She told me later, well, I figured out later, that she'd been staring at the shadow soul grass, trying to understand why every instinct in her body was screaming that she'd made a mistake with the prophecy. Not about Yi Ningfrost being special, about me being ordinary. She believed her ancestors' prediction, but she also believed her own eyes. And her eyes had just watched a mortal speedrun a ghost dungeon like it was a Sunday stroll. So she did something unprecedented. She picked up her communication jade and called her 8th senior sister. Hey little sis, I haven't caused any trouble lately. I swear, whether you've caused trouble or not, I'll find out when I get back. But that's not why I'm calling. Oh, thank goodness. What do you need? Anything, just name it. Long pause. Very long pause. The kind of pause where someone is questioning whether what they're about to say is brilliant or insane. 8th sister, do you want a disciple? While I was sleeping like a baby with 12,000 experience points as my security blanket, Lu Qingyi was apparently having a full-blown recruitment crisis on my behalf. And I had absolutely no clue. See, the tiny empress had decided she wanted to take me as her personal disciple. The problem? Her sect ancestors had specifically assigned her one job: train Yi Ningfrost, the prophesied world-saving destiny girl. That's it. One student. No distractions. Very clear instructions from dead people who could apparently predict the future. But Lu Qingyi couldn't shake the feeling that I was something special. So she started making phone calls. Immortal cultivator phone calls, which I assume involved glowing jade, tokens, and dramatic pauses. First, she called her 8th senior sister, a woman named Tong Shinran who apparently had the attention span of a caffeinated squirrel and a reputation for causing trouble. Hey little sis, I haven't broken anything lately, I promise. Lu Qingyi ignored that. Do you want a disciple? Silence. Then cautious interest. Are we talking once-in-a-generation genius? Well, his fortune says completely ordinary. More silence. The kind of silence that communicates disappointment across vast distances without needing words. You know what, little sis? I just realized I'm really not cut out for teaching. Rejected. Politely, but firmly, like returning a gift receipt for a sweater nobody wanted. Lu Qingyi tried sweetening the deal. I genuinely think you'll regret not taking him. He's different. Not every low-grade spirit root is a hidden gem, sweetie. Double rejected. With a patronizing cherry on top. So Lu Qingyi went down her entire contact list. Every senior brother and sister in the sect. Called them one by one like she was trying to find a babysitter on New Year's Eve. The answer was unanimous. Nobody wanted the discount bin spirit root kid when there were actual talented disciples available. The sect wasn't cruel about it. They just had standards, and fortune literally says ordinary, didn't exactly scream. Investment opportunity. Getting desperate, Lu Qingyi played her wildest card. She called Tong Xinran back. What if I give you Yi Ningfrost instead? I can only imagine the sound of someone dropping their jade communication device from a very high altitude. Are you insane? The ancestor personally assigned Yi Ningfrost to you. You can't just trade her like a collectible card. Fair point. Even Lu Qingyi knew she was reaching. So she tried one more angle. What if I just take both of them? Before Tong Xinran could answer, every senior member of the sect simultaneously jumped on the group chat, like parents hearing their kids suggest getting a second puppy. Absolutely not. Yi Ningfrost carries the destiny of heaven and earth. You must focus entirely on her training. If this Ing Huaishu kid proves himself after joining, then we'll discuss masters. A low-grade spirit root isn't a death sentence. Let him show results first. Lu Qingyi basically got overruled by committee. The sect elders weren't being mean. They just couldn't justify giving VIP mentorship to someone whose cosmic resume said, aggressively average. They told her to let me in as an outer disciple and see what happens. If I turned out to be special, they'd revisit the discussion. She accepted this because she had no choice, but I'm told she wasn't happy about it. Somewhere deep in her cultivator gut, she knew the prophecy was missing something. She just couldn't prove it, because every time she tried to divine my future, the universe responded with increasingly sarcastic variations of, nothing to see here. Meanwhile, back at the house, I walked through the gate to find Yi Ningfrost waiting up for me. Dinner saved, hot water prepared, everything arranged like I was checking into a hotel run by one very devoted employee. She asked if I wanted to eat or wash up first, and something about that simple question hit me somewhere unexpected. Back in the real world, after my parents died, I'd spent years alone in a nutrition pod, grinding a video game for money. No friends, no social life, no one waiting at the door asking if I was hungry. Just me and a VR headset and an endless cycle of digital labor. And now here was this girl, who I kept telling myself was just a storyline NPC, just a quest chain, just a means to an end, genuinely caring whether I'd eaten. I shoved that feeling into a box, locked the box, threw away the key, and reminded myself of the prime directive. Do not catch feelings. She belongs to Sword Boy. You are the cameraman. Cameramen don't get the girl. Cameramen get experience points and leave. I could tell she sensed my emotional walls going up. She bit her lip and quietly murmured something about trying harder, which was exactly the kind of thing that made maintaining those walls feel like holding back an ocean with a paper towel. After dinner, she couldn't sleep. Tomorrow we were leaving for the Divine Sky Sword sect, actual immortal cultivator school. She was nervous, excited, scared, and wanted to talk about it. Very understandable. Very human. She came to find me for a late-night chat. I was already unconscious, sleeping like a corpse in a coffin, dead to the world. Zero anxiety whatsoever. She was apparently baffled. We're about to enter an immortal sect, and he's not even slightly nervous. Lady, I've run every dungeon in that sect 600 times. I know where the bathrooms are. I know which cafeteria lady gives bigger portions on Tuesdays. I know which staircase has a squeaky third step. Nervous? I could give the orientation tour blindfolded, but the real reason I slept so well was math. 12,700 experience points. That was enough to power through the entire early game, crush every daily quest the sect could throw at me, and bulldoze the side missions that would make me actually strong. The sect's daily quests gave way better experience than Peacetown's little errands, and their special side missions, that was where the real growth happened. I had enough saved up to hit the ground sprinting. Next morning, I woke up refreshed, optimistic, and ready to conquer immortality. Then I saw Yi Ningfrost's face and physically recoiled. She had dark circles so deep they looked painted on. She'd been awake literally all night, vibrating with anxiety, while I'd been drooling on my pillow dreaming about experience multipliers. Couldn't sleep, she said weakly. I nodded sympathetically while internally thinking, amateur. In my world, the night before a big raid, you always get 8 hours. Rule number 1 of professional gaming. She'd learn. I brushed my teeth and deliberately didn't do the daily quest. Peacetown experience was pocket change compared to what the sect would offer. Doing errands here when I could do them, there was like picking up pennies on the way to a bank vault. Today was moving day. Next stop, Divine Sky Sword Sect. A mountain full of immortals, a school full of rivals, and a system full of exploits that nobody in this world knew existed. I was ready. Yi Ningfrost was terrified. And somewhere in a tavern, a tiny girl on a deer was still wondering why the universe kept telling her I was nobody special. Departure day. Lu Qingyi gathered everyone up and announced we were leaving. I nodded and immediately jogged toward the back mountain where the flying ship was parked. That's when I realized I'd messed up. Again, nobody had told me where the ship was. Not a single person. Not a hint. Not a direction. Not even a vague gesture. I just knew because I'd boarded this exact ship in the game approximately 900 times. My legs were on autopilot before my brain could intervene. Behind me, I could practically hear a dozen cultivator brains short-circuiting simultaneously. Lu Qingyi asked her disciples if anyone had told me the location. Nope. She asked if I'd scouted the area last night. Nope. I just walked there, like I had GPS installed in my skull. Which, technically, I did. It was called 10 years of gaming addiction. But they didn't know that. I'm told she stood there quietly connecting dots. The Shadow Soul Grass incident. She never told me where it was. I found it anyway. The dungeon puzzle. I solved it like I'd designed it myself. And now the ship. Every time someone gave me a task, I already knew the answer before they finished the question. She ordered her disciples to keep their mouths shut about this, which was probably smart because new recruit has omniscient knowledge of everything, was the kind of rumor that gets you either worshipped or dissected. The flying ship itself was gorgeous. Yi Ningfrost lost her mind over it, running around touching gemstones and jade decorations like a kid in a candy store, completely abandoning her usual composure. The other disciples found this charming because they'd all done the same thing on their first ride. Then there was me. I looked around, acknowledged the craftsmanship, and sat down looking mildly disappointed. Every disciple on that ship wanted to strangle me. Here's this mortal peasant, riding an immortal flying vessel for the first time, and he looked like someone who ordered steak and got chicken. They were furious, but too proud to ask why. Immortal cultivators apparently have a strict, never admit curiosity policy. Lu Qingyi, however, had no such policy. You seem unsatisfied? I panicked internally. Because the real reason I was disappointed? In the game, this ship had a treasure chest containing 100 spirit leaves. I'd been hoping the chest survived the transition to reality. It didn't. No chest, no spirit leaves, just fancy furniture and my broken dreams. Obviously, I couldn't say, I'm sad because the loot box is missing, so I improvised the most ridiculous excuse my brain could manufacture on zero notice. It's just, this ship is so beautiful, and I'm sad it's not mine. Lu Qingyi stared at me for what felt like 17 years. I could see her brain trying to decide if I was profound or profoundly stupid. Finally, she just nodded slowly and said, "Work hard for the sect, and you'll get one eventually." I saluted with maximum enthusiasm. I would walk through fire for this sect. She waved me off like someone shooing a particularly enthusiastic puppy. We both knew that was an empty promise. In the cultivation world, nobody actually throws themselves into volcanoes for their school. But I said it with such conviction that she couldn't even be properly annoyed. The flight to the Divine Sky Sword Sect was short, and when we arrived, good lord, it was exactly as I remembered. The mountain gate was so massive and ornate it made heaven's front door look like a garden fence. Players used to joke that we were basically enrolled in Paradise University. Mist swirling everywhere, impossible architecture carved into cloud-piercing peaks. The whole, welcome to immortality, aesthetic cranked to 11. Yi Ningfrost stood there with her jaw physically hanging open. I glanced at the gate once and looked away. 10 years of logging in through this exact entrance had completely immunized me to its grandeur. Seeing it in person was like visiting a famous landmark you've already seen in 10,000 photos. Technically impressive, emotionally flat. The gatekeeper was an old man with a red nose who I recognized instantly. In the game, this guy was the universal, "Please register here" NPC that every single player interacted with on day one. Seeing him alive and chatty was surreal. He immediately started shamelessly flattering Lu Qingyi, who shut him down with the efficiency of someone who'd heard this routine 1,000 times. Use that bootlicking energy on actual cultivation, and maybe you'd stop being a doorman. He laughed it off. I like being a doorman. Respect. This man had found his calling and refused to apologize for it. He registered Yi Ningfrost with maximum enthusiasm because she was pretty and important. Gave her the full VIP welcome. Big smiles, warm words, instant processing. Then nothing happened. Lu Qingyi stood there. The old man stood there. I stood there. He genuinely did not notice me. I was standing right next to Yi Ningfrost, and this man's eyes had skipped over me like I was part of the furniture. My completely ordinary fortune was apparently so powerful it granted me passive invisibility. Lu Qingyi finally snapped. Are you blind? There's a whole entire human being standing right there. The gatekeeper jumped. Oh, he's a disciple too. Beautiful. Just beautiful. Not even 5 minutes into the sect, and I was already being overlooked. My future here was going to be spectacular. He scrambled to register me, and the moment he handed back my token, my quest tracker lit up. Prologue complete. 500 experience, 3 spirit stones. And the first chapter of the main Hongming quest line officially unlocked. Something about Yi Ningfrost being troubled, requiring me to reach a certain cultivation level first. Perfect. Everything on schedule. Everything going according to plan. Then I ruined it by immediately activating my identity token's navigation features with the casual expertise of someone who'd done it 10,000 times. The gatekeeper's eyes nearly popped out of his skull. How do you know how to use that? Silence. Every person at the gate staring at me. My brain frantically searching for an excuse that wasn't. I've been using this interface since beta testing. I looked helplessly at Lu Qingyi. She stared back. 1 beat. 2 beats. I taught him, she said flatly. She did not teach me. We both knew she did not teach me. The gatekeeper probably knew she did not teach me. But when the most powerful junior disciple in the entire sect says, I taught him, with that tone of voice, nobody in the universe is brave enough to ask follow-up questions. I owed this girl my life at least 3 times over, and I hadn't even officially started school yet. Lu Qingyi covered for me again. That, I taught him, excuse hung in the air like a fart in an elevator. Everyone smelled it, nobody believed it, and absolutely no one was brave enough to comment. The logic was simple. If the scariest junior disciple in the sect vouched for the weird guy was officially not a problem. Case closed. File shredded. Moving on. She asked if I knew what to do next. I nodded and said I could find my own way to my quarters. She looked relieved, then suspicious, then resigned. The emotional journey of someone slowly accepting that I would keep knowing things I shouldn't know, and there was nothing she could do about it. She did ask if I knew the sect rules. Now, I actually knew every rule, every loophole, every exception, and which rules were secretly never enforced. But my survival instincts finally kicked in, and I shook my head. No idea, because if I'd said yes, she probably would have had me arrested for espionage. She told me outer disciples could pick 1 movement technique and 1 sword technique from the first floor of the scripture library. I bowed, thanked her, and took off toward my cave dwelling using the token's navigation like I'd been doing it my whole life. Meanwhile, she spent the next hour personally explaining every tiny detail to Yi Ningfrost, how the token works, where to go, what the rules were, what to eat, probably what thread count the bedsheets were. Full VIP orientation package. I got, figure it out yourself, and Yi Ningfrost got a guided museum tour with commentary. The prophecy girl treatment versus the discount bin treatment. I wasn't bitter. Much. Yi Ningfrost kept glancing in my direction as I walked away. Lu Qingyi noticed, but said nothing. Smart woman. Commenting on that situation was like poking a beehive. Nothing good could come from it. After settling everyone in, Lu Qingyi was halfway to her own room for a well-deserved nap when the sect master summoned her. Immediately, no rest for the tiny empress. She rolled her eyes so hard they probably did a full rotation. I must have been a workaholic in my past life to deserve this. The sect master was waiting in his grand hall looking like a magazine cover for Immortal CO Monthly, golden aura, Dharma wheel floating behind his back, expensive robes, intimidating jawline. But the second he saw Lu Qingyi, he switched from Supreme Leader to guy trying not to upset his little sister mode. Welcome back. You've worked so hard. She sat down, grabbed tea, and took a sip with the energy of someone who'd rather be literally anywhere else. If you knew I was tired, why didn't you let me sleep? He winced and got to business. Apparently, there was a place called the Cold Abyss Secret Realm opening in less than 3 years. Yi Ningfrost had to enter it regardless of her cultivation level. Ancestors' orders, non-negotiable, destiny stuff. Problem was, the realm was showing signs of corruption, and if Yi Ningfrost went in too weak, she'd basically be a lamb walking into a meat grinder. She needed to reach the Meridian opening realm within 3 years minimum just to survive. Lu Qingyi did the math and didn't like the answer. She has a low-grade spirit root right now. Getting to Meridian opening in 3 years with that? Are you joking? The sect master suggested force-feeding her rare treasures and spiritual resources to accelerate the process. Lu Qingyi nearly flipped the tea table. That method was dangerous. It could cause spiritual collapse, permanent damage, or outright kill the person being helped. They were essentially proposing to shove a student through a 4-year degree in 6 months by replacing sleep with amphetamines. Effective? Maybe. Humane? Absolutely not. The ancestors' prophecy has never been wrong, the sect master argued. And if she's truly the chosen one, maybe she can handle it. Lu Qingyi put down her cup with the controlled fury of someone choosing not to commit violence. I'm tired. We'll discuss this tomorrow. She flew out before he could respond. Didn't look back. Didn't say goodbye. Just gone, leaving the most powerful man in the sect sitting alone in his giant hall wondering why his little sister made him feel like a scolded child. What I pieced together later was that Lu Qingyi fundamentally hated this whole arrangement. Not the prophecy itself. She respected her ancestor. But the idea of forcing someone to suffer because a dead man said they were destined to handle it, that disgusted her. Yi Ningfrost was a person, not a prophecy delivery vehicle. Cramming her full of resources until she either broke through or broke apart wasn't cultivation. It was cruelty with scheduling. Behind the scenes, the other senior disciples were having their own little debate about this mess. They all agreed the sect master wasn't wrong. The timeline was real, the danger was real, and gambling against the ancestors' prophecy was suicide. But they also knew Lu Qingyi wouldn't cooperate easily, and nobody wanted to be the person who tried to change her mind. The second senior brother, some scholarly type who apparently argued with Lu Qingyi the way cats fight dogs, was theoretically the best candidate to convince her. But their conversations had a documented history of escalating from polite disagreement to actual physical combat within 2 sentences, so everyone collectively decided to shut up and let the problem solve itself. And there I was, completely oblivious to all of this, wandering through the sect's beautiful mountain paths toward my new cave dwelling, checking my experience total like a kid counting Halloween candy. 12,700 experience. A spirit sword that could carry me through the early realms. A demon soul that would become my first pet. A storage bag with 20 extra inventory slots. And a navigation system telling me exactly where to pick up free sword techniques tomorrow. The sect was already tearing itself apart over Yi Ningfrost's training schedule. Lu Qingyi was fighting her own leadership over ethics, and a cosmic countdown to disaster was ticking in the background. But I didn't know any of that yet. I was just a guy looking for his room, excited about free skill books, sleeping like a champion while the world quietly prepared to catch fire around me. While the sect leadership was busy having panic attacks about Yi Ningfrost's training schedule and cosmic prophecies, I was doing something infinitely more important, speedrunning the tutorial. First order of business, open the map. The entire Divine Sky Sword sect was covered in fog of war like I was playing a strategy game without satellites. Which was annoying because I knew this place better than my own apartment. Every building, every shortcut, every hidden corner, all stored perfectly in my brain, completely useless until I physically walked there and let the fog clear. So I spent 4 hours jogging through the most prestigious cultivation sect in the world like a tourist who'd lost his tour group, casually visiting forbidden peaks and sacred training grounds while pretending to be hopelessly lost. Oh no, I accidentally ended up at the ancestral sword pavilion. Silly me, just a confused new disciple wandering aimlessly, definitely not systematically mapping every square inch of your mountain with military precision. 300 experience for completing the full map. Not bad for a morning jog. Then I beelined for the back mountain, plucked 3 specific spiritual herbs that I knew grew in 3 specific spots, and headed straight to the alchemy hall. A disciple was standing outside looking miserable. Daily quest detected. I walked up to him, asked if he needed help, and the guy started with the whole, "Well, I need some herbs, but you're new so you probably don't." I shoved the 3 herbs into his hands before he finished his sentence. Quest complete. 1000 experience. Thank you. Goodbye. Never speak to me again. The poor guy was still trying to process what happened when I was already halfway across the sect. He stood there holding herbs that he hadn't even described yet, given by a stranger who somehow knew exactly what he needed before he said it. I'm sure he had a lot of questions. I'm sure those questions went unanswered. Next stop, Scripture Library. This was the candy store. Every new outer disciple got to pick 1 movement technique and 1 sword technique for free. The librarian, a grumpy old man who clearly loved rules more than his own family, registered my token and started reciting regulations. I grabbed my token back and walked in before he finished his 3rd sentence. Behind me, I could practically hear his blood pressure spike. Rude little brat. When you break a rule, I'll personally, except I didn't break a single rule. Not one. I navigated the library like I'd built the shelving system myself. The big trap in this place, one that new disciples fell into constantly, was that any technique you opened and read was automatically counted as your selection. Peek at the wrong book out of curiosity? Congratulations, that's your pick now, no refunds. Enjoy your terrible choice for the next 6 months. I didn't touch a single book I didn't want. Walked past the flashy ones, ignored the popular ones, went straight to my targets and pulled them off the shelves without hesitation. The librarian watched me with an expression that slowly evolved from anger to confusion to genuine unease. Because I wasn't behaving like a clueless newbie. I was behaving like an employee who'd worked here for 30 years and was just grabbing his usual lunch from the break room. He couldn't figure out if I was a spy or someone with connections. A spy was impossible. Lu Qingyi's security was airtight. Nothing got past her. But connections? What kind of connections would a low-grade spirit root nobody have? The math didn't add up, and it was clearly giving him a headache. My picks: Frost Step for movement, Sky Frost Sword for combat. Both low-grade. Both completely unremarkable. Both absolutely perfect. I know what you're thinking. You're in a library full of legendary techniques, and you picked the boring ones. And yes, intentionally. This was a veteran move that separated the pros from the amateurs. See, there were 2 flashy techniques every new disciple drooled over: Star Frost Sword Volume 1 and Ice Condensation Step. Top-tier starter skills. Powerful, impressive, Instagram-worthy. Every rich player grabbed them on day 1 and felt like a genius. Then they discovered the ugly truth. Those techniques cost an obscene amount of experience to upgrade, could never reach maximum mastery before you outgrew them, and had to be replaced the moment you hit the next cultivation realm anyway. All that experience? Wasted. Dumped into skills with an expiration date. My boring picks? Cheap to upgrade, could be maxed out immediately, and provided better actual stats than the flashy ones at their incomplete levels. Less cool looking, twice as effective. Fashion versus function, and I chose function every time. An inner disciple apparently came by after I left to ask the librarian what I'd chosen. When he heard my picks, he was baffled. That's it. That ordinary. He'd expected Lu Qingyi's pet project to grab the premium options. Instead, I'd chosen the cultivation equivalent of store-brand cereal. He left confused. The librarian went back to his nap, and my reputation as the most aggressively average disciple in sect history continued to solidify. Back in my cave dwelling, I sealed the defensive formation and sat down. It was time for the main event. Time to dump 12,800 experience points into raw power. I pulled up my status screen and cracked my knuckles. All right, experience points. Get in my body. First target: Heavenly Force Body Tempering. the basic cultivation method every new disciple received. I jammed experience into it like coins into a slot machine. Entry level, 500 experience. Small success, 1,000 more. Major success, 1,500 more. Each upgrade poured knowledge and physical enhancement directly into my muscles and bones. My body literally restructured itself with every tier. I stopped at major success. Going higher wasn't worth the cost. The returns diminished sharply, and I'd need those points elsewhere. Veteran wisdom. Never max out a basic technique when upgrades are coming. Then came the real prize. Actual cultivation levels. Alright, body. Time to evolve. Body tempering layer 1. 200 experience. Discounted by 1,000 thanks to my technique mastery. Layer 2. 400. Layer 3. 800. Each breakthrough sent waves of energy through me, rebuilding my physical foundation from the ground up. I could feel my bones hardening, my muscles compressing, my senses sharpening. What would take normal disciples weeks of painful meditation, I was achieving in minutes by mentally clicking an upgrade button. This was the beautiful absurdity of my existence. While every other disciple in this sect was going to suffer through months of grueling training, agonizing breakthroughs, and sleepless nights of cultivation, I was sitting in my room clicking plus on a screen only I could see, leveling up like I was allocating skill points in a character menu. Somewhere in this mountain, Yining Frost was nervously settling into her new room. Lu Qingyi was arguing with the sect master about ethics. Senior disciples were debating prophecies and training schedules. The entire leadership was sweating over a 3-year deadline. And I was sitting cross-legged in my cave, spending experience points like a kid with birthday money at an arcade, getting stronger with every click, humming quietly to myself because life, despite being trapped in a death game world on the hardest difficulty, was actually going pretty great right now. Leveling up in a video game? Click, click, click. Numbers go up. Grab a snack. Leveling up when you are the video game? Imagine someone filling your veins with liquid dynamite while simultaneously rebuilding your skeleton with a jackhammer. That's what hitting body tempering layer 3 felt like. The raw power flooding through me almost knocked me unconscious. I had to sit there for half an hour just breathing and trying not to die from my own upgrade. In the game, this was nothing. Just watch a bar fill up and move on. But my real flesh and blood body apparently had opinions about being restructured at the molecular level, and those opinions were mostly screaming. I gritted my teeth and kept going. Layers 4 and 5 hit like freight trains made of electricity. Each breakthrough cost thousands of experience points, but my maxed-out body tempering technique slashed the price by 1,000 each time. Veteran efficiency paying dividends while my nervous system paid the price. By the time I reached layer 5, I had roughly 1,000 experience left and a body that felt like it belonged to a completely different species. I went to the back mountain to test myself. Picked up a 10,000-pound boulder with one arm. Felt like lifting a pillow. Found a bigger one. 50,000 pounds, single arm, barely trying. I was essentially a forklift that could also do sword techniques. The power scaling in this world was genuinely absurd. Back when it was just numbers on a screen, I thought the developers were exaggerating. They were not. I could probably punch through a castle wall and complain about the dust. But the wildest discovery was my sword connection. When I held my ice spirit blade and closed my eyes, I could feel it. Not just the weight and the balance. I could sense every internal structure, every grain of the metal, like the sword was an extension of my nervous system. My brain instinctively knew the optimal angle, speed, and force for every possible swing. This had to be my hidden Dao sword spirit root doing its thing behind the scenes. A feature that never existed in the game because game characters don't have actual nerve endings. Being real had perks that no amount of coding could replicate. Filed that under. Investigate later. Exploit forever. Then I dumped my remaining experience into Frost Step and Sky Frost Sword. 3,400 into the movement skill, 5,000 into the sword technique. Both maxed out at perfect mastery. Complete. Done. No further upgrades possible. 2 techniques at absolute peak performance for the cost of what most disciples would consider pocket change, because I'd chosen the efficient cheap options instead of the flashy expensive ones. Testing Frost Step nearly made me fall over laughing. 1 step, 70 meters. My feet barely touched the ground before I was somewhere else entirely. It felt like ice skating on invisible rails at the speed of a car. And because my spirit root had ice properties, the technique synergized perfectly, making it even smoother and faster than it should have been. Everywhere I stepped, a trail of frost spread across the ground, freezing nearby grass and flowers for about 3 seconds before fading. Looked cool. Functionally useless, but very cool. Skyfrost Sword was even better. Blue ice coated my blade the instant I activated it. I gave a nearby tree an experimental slash, didn't even swing hard, and the trunk snapped clean through like a breadstick. The cut surface was covered in this bizarre blue ice flame that froze everything it touched. I held a blade of grass near it, and the thing crystallized into a solid ice sculpture instantly. I was walking around the Sex back mountain one-shotting trees and leaving frost trails like a homicidal ice skater, and I'd only been a cultivator for approximately 6 hours. At this rate, I'd be the strongest outer disciple by dinner and the most confusing person in the entire sect by breakfast tomorrow. Satisfied with my murder testing, I went to bed early. Tomorrow was exploration day. Next morning, I woke up to a Christmas miracle. The system was handing out new features like a mall Santa who'd had too much eggnog. Mailbox, unlocked. True Spirit Eye Scanner, unlocked. Sect activities, unlocked. And the big one, shop function, unlocked. The mailbox had actual mail in it. Pre-registration rewards from when the game launched. 40 spirit leaves, 3,888 Dao stones, and 1 unit of innate chi. The spirit leaves were originally for pulling gacha cosmetics. Useless now since the costume lottery didn't exist anymore. The Dao stones were premium currency for a cash shop that also didn't exist. I was sitting on a pile of exclusive currency with nowhere to spend it, like winning a gift card to a store that burned down. But the shop function? That was where things got disgusting. 3 items for sale. Health pills, 99 stack, 10 spirit stones. Mana pills, 99 stack, 10 spirit stones. And bone strengthening pills, 99 units for 50 spirit stones. Shop refreshes every 12 hours. Do the math with me. Each bone strengthening pill sold to the sect's NPC vendors for 10 spirit stones. 99 pills times 10 stones equals 990 spirit stones. I'd spend 50 to buy them and sell for 990. That's a profit margin so obscene it should be illegal. And it refreshed twice a day. I was basically running a pharmaceutical empire out of my inventory screen while every other disciple was scraping together pennies from missions. Spirit stones were the universal currency of cultivation. Every future breakthrough, every technique upgrade, every resource purchase, all priced in spirit stones. And I'd just discovered an infinite money printer hidden in my game system. I immediately bought everything. My pill inventory exploded. Then I noticed something alarming. 8 of my healing pills had been consumed automatically during my breakthrough session. My body had been secretly eating medical supplies while I was busy screaming through cultivation upgrades. That was why I didn't feel the usual post-breakthrough starvation that every cultivator complained about. My auto-heal settings were feeding me pills before the hunger could even register. Good news, the system was protecting me. Bad news. Each pill was essentially a non-renewable resource that I'd been burning without realizing it. If I'd pushed through more layers without checking, I might have blown through my entire emergency medical supply on routine upgrades. Note to self, monitor pill consumption during breakthroughs. Being too efficient can kill you just as fast as being too slow. I looked at my stats one more time. Body tempering 5. 2 techniques at perfect. 1,000 experience in reserve. Over 100 spirit stones. A spirit sword that most outer disciples would sell organs for. And a shop that printed money twice daily. Not bad for day 1 at a mortal school. Not bad at all. So I had a moment of clarity sitting in my cave dwelling that went something like, wait, am I actually overpowered? No cooldowns on skills. No cooldowns on pills. My body absorbs medicine instantly like a sponge drinking soup. I can spam sword techniques until my arms fall off, chug healing potions like energy drinks, and my combat instincts from 10 years of professional gaming still work perfectly in this world. Within the same cultivation level, I was basically unkillable. A walking cheat code disguised as a discount bin outer disciple with a garbage spirit root. But I slapped myself with a mental reminder, this is not a game. Stop thinking like a gamer. In the game, you could stand on an NPC's head and they'd just keep talking about the weather. Here, stand on someone's head and they will yin to you. The bunny hopping, the wall climbing, the treating real people like furniture, all of that needed to stop. Or at least be reduced to emergencies only. My new daily routine at the sect kicked off with the alchemy hall activity. I could only do one sect activity per day, and I chose this one because I needed to sell my bone-strengthening pills. But first, the daily quest. Same deal as yesterday. Same sad disciple standing outside the alchemy hall needing the same 3 herbs. I'd already picked them on the way over because I'm efficient like that. Walked up, slapped the herbs on the counter in front of him, watched the 300 experience register, and walked away without a single word. The guy was standing there mid-sentence, mouth open, herbs in hand, watching me disappear for the 2nd day in a row. I could feel his confusion burning a hole in my back. He probably spent the rest of the afternoon trying to figure out if I was the most generous person alive or just profoundly allergic to conversation. Honestly, both. I liked helping people. I just didn't have time for small talk when experience points were on the line. Inside the alchemy hall, reality punched me in the feelings. Hard. This place used to be packed. In the game, hundreds of players crammed into every corner, shoving each other, jumping on each other's heads, wearing the most ridiculous costumes imaginable. Flame bikinis, rainbow wizard hats, full chicken suits. There was always someone doing something stupid, always chaos, always noise. You'd have to fight through a crowd just to reach the quest NPC. If you turned off the player display filter, you'd see a mountain of human bodies stacked to the ceiling like a mosh pit designed by a lunatic. Now, empty, silent. Just a few sect disciples walking around doing their jobs in peace. The halls echoed. The spaces felt enormous. No players, no chaos, no chicken suits. Just me and the ghosts of a community that didn't exist in this world. I stood there for longer than I'd like to admit. It hit different when you realized those people weren't just absent. They'd never been here at all. Every friend I'd grouped with, every rival I'd competed against, every random stranger who'd helped me complete a dungeon at 3 in the morning, none of them existed in this reality. I was the only player who'd ever set foot in this world, and I always would be. I shook it off. Feelings later. Grinding now. I signed up for alchemy hall duties. The fat manager at the front desk was basically a copy-paste of the library manager. Half asleep, minimum effort, treating his job like a mild inconvenience that happened to pay rent. He checked my token, grunted, room 17, and was unconscious again before I finished bowing. Room 17 contained an old man and a crime scene. I knocked on the door, politely, like a civilized person who has learned that NPCs are real people now, and the door exploded outward with a bang. Smoke billowed everywhere. The old alchemist inside glared at me with the fury of 1,000 failed experiments because apparently my knock had startled him into blowing up his furnace mid-brew. Fantastic. Day 1 on the job, and I'd already committed accidental arson. He calmed down after I explained I was a new disciple assigned to help. He linked our identity tokens, gave me the rundown, cleaned the room, scrubbed the furnace, keep everything spotless, and went back to ruining perfectly good ingredients. This man was, without question, the worst alchemist I had ever witnessed in any reality. 7 attempts at pill-making throughout the day. 3 explosions. 2 complete failures. 2 successes that produced the absolute lowest quality bone-strengthening pills physically possible. He was thrilled with his 2 successes, dancing around his furnace like he'd discovered the secret of immortality instead of barely managing to not blow himself up for 20 consecutive minutes. Meanwhile, I was silently comparing him to Dr. Lee from Peace Town, a mortal with no cultivation, no proper equipment, using a cooking pot as a furnace, who'd successfully brewed 10 pills on his first try. This sect-trained alchemist with professional-grade tools and actual spiritual energy couldn't match the output of a village doctor with a soup pot and a dream. I said nothing. I'm a professional. Professionals don't roast their coworkers on day 1. They wait until at least day 3. After he left for the evening, I got to clean his disaster zone. The inside of that furnace looked like a volcano had eaten a pharmacy and thrown it back up. Layers of crusty medicinal residue cemented to every surface. I spent an embarrassing amount of time hunched over the rim with a tiny shovel and a dustpan, scraping out gunk like a medieval chimney sweep who'd made very poor career choices. But the reward? 1,500 experience and 10 contribution points. For sweeping a floor, and scooping goop. I'd take that deal every day of the week and twice on explosion days. Walking home with a clean conscience and a full experience bar, I started planning tomorrow. If I kept watching this old man fail at alchemy, I might trigger a rare encounter quest, the same one that unlocked the alchemy crafting system for players in the game. If that worked, I could start making my own pills instead of just buying and reselling. Between the shop's infinite supply and my own potential crafting, I'd have more spirit stones than most inner disciples within a month. The prophecy said I was completely ordinary. My bank account was about to violently disagree. Day 3 at Immortal School, and I was already questioning the entire alchemy department's right to exist. My morning started fine. Daily quest, same herbs, same sad disciple, same wordless exchange. I handed him the plants, collected my 1,000 experience, and vanished before he could attempt conversation. By now he'd stopped trying to talk to me, and just accepted that our relationship consisted entirely of me appearing like a herb-delivering phantom and disappearing like I had somewhere extremely important to be. Which I did. Always. But something bugged me. Yesterday's daily quest only gave 300 experience instead of 1,000. Same quest, same herbs, different payout. Was the system glitching? Was there some hidden variable I didn't understand? Normally I'd submit a bug report, but my customer support department had been permanently closed due to the minor inconvenience of reality replacing the game. So I just shrugged and moved on, because what else can you do when your tech support is God and God isn't taking calls? At the Alchemy Hall, the rotation system assigned me to a different room. I walked in and found myself face-to-face with my daily quest herb guy. We stared at each other for an uncomfortable amount of time. Two people who developed an entire relationship based on 0 words suddenly forced into close quarters for an 8-hour shift. Beautiful. He started brewing pills. I started sweeping. And within 20 minutes I realized I owed yesterday's old man a massive apology. That geezer with his 3 explosions and 2 successes? He was a prodigy compared to this disaster. This new guy, Huang Tianqi was his name, didn't explode anything. He just failed. Constantly. Consistently. Impressively. Every single batch came out wrong, and each failure launched a volcanic eruption of black smoke and herb ash that coated every surface I'd just finished cleaning. I'd scrub the floor spotless, turn around for 30 seconds, and the entire room would look like the inside of a chimney again. It was like trying to mop during a sandstorm. My broom was basically decorative at this point. After watching him botch the same step 8 times in a row, literally the identical mistake, 8 consecutive attempts, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Very diplomatically, I suggested that maybe, possibly, he should memorize the recipe before trying again. He got quiet, stroked his chin, looked thoughtful. I thought progress was being made. Then he hit me with the most delusional speech I'd ever heard in 2 lifetimes. My master says I have a once-in-a-generation talent for alchemy. Perhaps the recipe itself is wrong, and my instincts are trying to correct it. Yes. I need to follow my feelings. He fired up the furnace with the confidence of a man who'd just achieved enlightenment. I took one look at his expression and sprinted out the door like the building was on fire. Which, 2 seconds later, it basically was. Boom. The explosion hit my back like a truck. The door behind me disintegrated into splinters. Black smoke mushroomed out of the room like a small nuclear test. If I hadn't already upgraded to body tempering 5, that shockwave would have rearranged my internal organs. And then, like some kind of alchemical apocalypse, every other room in the hall started exploding too. Chain reaction. Domino effect. One furnace blows, the vibration destabilizes the next one, and suddenly the entire alchemy wing sounded like a war zone. Boom, 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 one after another, black smoke pouring out of every doorway. Coughing alchemists stumbling into the hallway looking like coal miners after a cave-in. Huang Tianqi emerged from his personal crater completely unharmed, just covered in soot, wearing the sheepish grin of someone who'd accidentally ended civilization and felt mildly bad about it. I stood in the middle of this catastrophe and had a revelation. Yesterday's old man wasn't bad. He was the best alchemist in this building. He could at least make 2 batches without leveling the facility. Compared to this circus, he was basically a genius. I mentally apologized to him for every judgmental thought I'd had. Then Huang Tianqi, seemingly unbothered by having just detonated half the alchemy department, turned to me with the serene confidence of a man who'd learned nothing. I know what you're thinking, but you don't understand how hard alchemy really is. Here, try it yourself. He handed me a pill recipe. My system immediately lit up with a rare encounter quest notification, which made me want to hug this incompetent maniac. He'd just unlocked the alchemy crafting tutorial for me without even knowing it. Sometimes the universe rewards you for suffering, and my reward for enduring 8 hours of smoke inhalation was access to the most profitable skill in the entire game. He led me to an empty room and started lecturing about furnace temperatures, earth-fire control, ingredient ratios, and about 40 other things I wasn't listening to even slightly. He was mid-sentence about the delicate art of, when I tossed the recipe aside, grabbed the herbs, and activated the furnace. Here's what alchemy looked like through my game system. The furnace lid pops open, ingredients highlight like glowing icons. A temperature gauge appears with color-coded safety zones, and a rhythm game starts where blocks scroll across a bar telling me exactly when to raise or lower the heat. Green means go. Blue means careful. Red means you're about to redecorate the ceiling with your eyebrows. It was basically Guitar Hero, but instead of music, you make drugs. I tossed herbs in sequence, adjusted flames on cue, matched every block perfectly, and 30 seconds later the furnace popped its lid with a gentle puff of fragrant steam instead of a building-destroying explosion. Huang Tianqi was still explaining step 1 of his lecture to the empty air where I'd been standing. He turned around to find me already finished, sweet-smelling medicine wafting from an open furnace, not a single wisp of black smoke in sight. The look on his face was the visual equivalent of a math error, like his brain tried to divide by 0 and just displayed a blank screen. I probably should have felt bad. This guy had spent years studying alchemy, failing daily, clinging to his master's encouragement like a life raft, and I'd just casually succeeded on my first attempt using what was essentially a cheat code minigame only I could see. But I didn't feel bad, because my floor was clean and I intended to keep it that way. Huang Tianqi's smile froze on his face like someone hit the pause button on his entire nervous system. He scrambled over to the furnace and stuck his head inside so fast he nearly fell in. 7 pills. Pure white. Flawless. Sitting in that furnace like little pearls of pharmaceutical perfection. Supreme-grade spirit-breaking pills, he screamed at a volume that probably alerted neighboring mountain peaks. Then he did the most uncomfortable thing possible. He grabbed both my hands and held them like we were about to slow dance at prom. His eyes were wet. His grip was desperate. I genuinely feared for my personal safety. Brother, please, what rank alchemist are you? This was my first time making pills. I thought the man was going to have a stroke. His face cycled through about 14 emotions in 2 seconds. Disbelief, anger, grief, existential horror, more disbelief, before settling on the hollow stare of a man whose entire identity had just been politely demolished by a newcomer who'd spent less time at the furnace than it takes to boil an egg. He started shoving pill recipes at me like a desperate card dealer. Can you make this one? What about this? This? My system helpfully evaluated each recipe and told me which ones I could handle. Bone pills, spirit-breaking pills, healing pills, mana pills, all doable. Anything above that showed insufficient alchemy rank and got rejected. When he tallied up what I could brew, he nearly ascended to heaven on the spot. That's second-rank alchemist level. You're a second-rank alchemist on your first day. He slapped an official alchemy identity token into my hand so fast, it was still warm from his pocket. Free access to any pill-making room. Unlimited use of sect medicinal ingredients. Full crafting privileges. The golden ticket to pharmaceutical paradise, handed to me by a guy whose own pills had a survival rate lower than his furnace's structural integrity. The system confirmed everything. Rare encounter quest complete. Alchemy system permanently unlocked. 3,000 experience for the quest, 2,000 more for the sect activity. 5,000 experience from one afternoon of watching a man fail and then casually outperforming him. I almost felt guilty. Almost. Then he dropped the real bombshell. I asked if my alchemist status needed to go through some kind of approval process, paperwork, maybe a committee review. He waved his hand dismissively. No need. The entire outer alchemy hall belongs to my family. I blinked. My dad's the alchemy peak master, so this sweet, incompetent, enthusiastic disaster of a pill maker was secretly the son of one of the most powerful people in the entire sect. A cultivator trust fund baby whose dad literally owned the department. No wonder nobody had fired him despite his catastrophic success rate. He had nepotism armor thicker than my cave dwelling's walls. And he'd just given me unrestricted access to his family's entire operation because I'd impressed him with 30 seconds of competent work. I used to hate this guy in the game. His daily quest location was always the farthest away, making him the most annoying errand on the map. Now, he was my new best friend, my business partner, my gateway to unlimited alchemy resources. Funny how learning someone's dad runs the pill factory makes you instantly warmer toward them as a person. What I didn't realize was that Huang Tianqi was equally excited about me. Apparently watching someone casually brew supreme-grade pills on their first attempt while you've been failing for years does something to your priorities. He wanted to recruit me to Alchemy Peak so badly he was practically vibrating. The only thing stopping him was my association with Lu Qingyi. Nobody with functioning brain cells tries to poach disciples from the scariest woman in the sect. Not even rich kids with daddy connections. But before any political maneuvering could happen, I had business to attend to. I'd just unlocked the alchemy system, and I had 200 portions of bone pill ingredients sitting in my inventory. Time to print money. I started carefully. First 10 batches done properly, measuring, timing, following the rhythm game perfectly. Beautiful pills every time. Huang Tianqi watched with the reverence of a man witnessing miracles. Then I got bored. I dumped all 200 remaining portions into the furnace at once. Just crammed them in there like loading a washing machine. Huang Tianqi's eyes went so wide I could see the whites all the way around. The furnace roared, rumbled, shook like it was possessed. Then, pop, lid flies open, sweet medicinal fragrance pours out, and sitting inside were 200 perfect bone-strengthening pills. One batch, 30 seconds. Factory-scale production from a single undergraduate-level furnace. Huang Tianqi sat down on the floor, not because he wanted to, because his legs stopped working. I cheerfully scooped up my 200 pills, thanked him for the wonderful learning experience, and walked out whistling. Behind me, a rich kid with generational wealth and family connections was sitting alone in a smoky room having a complete existential crisis about his life choices, his talent, and whether his dad had lied to him about being special. He called his father immediately. "Dad, there's this new outer disciple. You need to hear about this." His dad, the alchemy peak master, responded with the enthusiasm of someone being told about their teenager's latest obsession. "Sure, son. Very impressive." "Uh-huh." He didn't watch the recording Crystal Huang Tianqi sent. Didn't even open it. Just tossed it into his junk pile and went back to whatever important peak master things he was doing. Because in his experience, every person his son called a genius turned out to be mediocre, and he'd stopped taking these calls seriously approximately 40 disappointments ago. Huang Tianqi tried desperately to convince him. Sent messages, made arguments, practically begged. His dad's responses got shorter and more dismissive with each attempt until he was just sending single-word acknowledgments. Finally, Huang Tianqi snapped. "You're short-sighted, old man. Mark my words. Your arrogance today will be your deepest regret tomorrow." "I'm putting that on the record." His father snorted and disconnected. The boy's delusions are getting worse. Huang Tianqi sat alone in the alchemy hall, surrounded by the lingering scent of 200 perfect pills that he hadn't made, and sighed the sigh of a prophet nobody believes. Some people just can't recognize opportunity when it's standing right in front of them, brewing supreme-grade pills in their furnace, while I was busy becoming the richest outer disciple in sect history through my completely legitimate pill manufacturing operation. The entire mountain was apparently losing its collective mind over Yining Frost, and accidentally losing its collective mind over me at the same time. I didn't know any of this at the time, of course. I was too busy counting spirit stones and planning tomorrow's furnace schedule. But what I pieced together later painted an absolutely beautiful picture of institutional chaos. First, Huang Tianqi called his dad, the alchemy peak master, one of the most important people in the entire sect, and basically said, "Dad, I found a once-in-a-generation genius. We need to recruit him immediately before someone else does." His dad hung up on him. Not metaphorically, actually severed the communication link mid-sentence. Because apparently Huang Tianqi had cried wolf so many times about discovering talent that his father had developed a Pavlovian response of instant dismissal. Every person his son had ever called a genius turned out to be garbage. The recording crystal showing me casually producing 200 pills in one batch, tossed into a junk pile without being opened. My entire demonstration of God-tier alchemy talent, dismissed as the ramblings of a delusional rich kid who couldn't tell good pills from bad ones because he'd never successfully made either. Meanwhile, the alchemy peak master was busy doing something he considered actually important, personally crafting the finest possible pills for Yining Frost. Top-quality bone pills, spirit-breaking pills, recovery medicines. Every peak in the sect was doing the same thing. The entire mountain's resources were being funneled toward one girl because a dead ancestor said she was special. An assembly line of immortal cultivators, all crafting artisanal medicine for a teenager who'd been here for 3 days. And there I was, one floor below in the same building, mass-producing identical pills at industrial scale using a video game interface. The cosmic irony was thick enough to spread on toast. The pills got boxed up and delivered to Lu Qingyi's doorstep by a very polite courier. She opened the box, looked at the premium bone-strengthening pills inside, and, according to what I heard later, crushed every single one into powder with a burst of spiritual energy. Box and all, just obliterated them like they'd personally insulted her mother. Her 8th senior sister, Tong Xinran, was lounging nearby eating spirit fruit like she was watching daytime television and nearly choked on a seed. Lu Qingyi's position was magnificent in its brutality. If Yining Frost couldn't obtain her own bone pills through her own effort as an outer disciple, then she didn't deserve to be in the outer sect at all. Ship her to the pocket dimension and raise her as a decorative houseplant. A destiny-bearing potted flower. The harshest gardening metaphor in cultivation history. Her reasoning was actually solid, and I respected the hell out of it even after learning about it secondhand. She'd read too many stories where the strong, independent heroine was actually carried by everyone around her. This friend saves her here. That mentor sacrifices themselves there. And by the finale, everyone she's ever met dies, so she can have one dramatic victory. Lu Qingyi thought that was garbage writing and garbage mentorship. She'd clawed her own way to the top without handouts, and she expected the same from anyone called Destiny's Chosen. If destiny picks you, destiny should have picked someone who can handle it. Tong Xinran gently suggested that maybe a little help wouldn't hurt. Not everyone was born as terrifying as Lu Qingyi. 3 years to reach meridian opening on a low-grade spirit route with 0 assistance was ambitious, borderline impossible, even. Lu Qingyi didn't respond to that. Instead, she apparently got curious about what I was doing. She activated some kind of surveillance technique, because of course the sect could spy on its disciples and check my status. The room reportedly went very quiet. Body tempering 5. In 3 days. As an outer disciple with 0 resources provided by the sect, while also becoming a certified second-rank alchemist, while also producing 200 bone pills that he'd already converted to spirit stones, while also completing daily quests and sect activities with mechanical precision. She pulled up my activity log and read through it entry by entry. Day 1. Helped someone, said nothing, picked 2 mediocre techniques, disappeared. Day 2. Helped the same someone, said nothing again, cleaned furnaces all day. Day 3. Accidentally revealed generational alchemy talent, produced enough medicine to supply the entire outer sect, got rich. Every line was more confusing than the last. No help requested. No mentorship needed. No resources consumed from the sect stockpile. I was entirely self-sufficient. A closed economic loop of grinding, crafting, selling, and upgrading that required absolutely nothing from the organization supposedly supporting me. The sect hadn't given me a single useful thing, and I was already outpacing disciples who'd been here for years. Lu Qingyi closed the log and asked a question that I'm told made Tong Xinran very uncomfortable. Who's the real chosen one here? She went back to the ancestor's prophecy. Read the whole thing cover to cover. Searched for any mention of me, any hint, any footnote. Nothing. Not a word. Not a shadow. According to the most reliable prediction in the sect's history, I simply did not matter. Does the ancestor ever make mistakes? She asked. Never, Tong Xinran said firmly, citing their 3rd senior brother as proof. A man who'd tried to defy the prophecy and ended up fulfilling it accidentally, exactly as predicted. Lu Qingyi went quiet for a dangerously long time. Then she made a move that I wouldn't understand until much later. She ordered the alchemy hall shut down for a day. Safety inspection after the explosions. Very reasonable. Very convenient. Then she told the Sex Bounty Hall to post an emergency bandit hunting mission with inflated rewards. The kind of juicy, overpaid quest that would attract every outer disciple on the mountain, including me. She was engineering a field test. She couldn't figure me out through records and fortune-telling, so she was going to watch me fight in the wild and see what happened. A custom-designed pop quiz for the most confusing student she'd ever enrolled, disguised as a routine sect mission. I had no idea any of this was happening. I was in my cave counting pills and planning what to cook for dinner, completely oblivious to the fact that the most perceptive person in the entire sect had just designed an elaborate combat evaluation specifically for me, the universe's most aggressively ordinary anomaly. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. I just didn't know it yet. Woke up fresh as a daisy because while every other disciple in this mountain spent their nights meditating until their butts went numb, my cultivation method was click the plus button and scream through the pain. I had over 10,000 experience saved up, but wasn't touching it yet. Last time I leveled up, the power surge nearly scrambled my brain like an egg. Real bodies don't appreciate being forcibly upgraded the way game avatars do. I needed more healing pills stockpiled before I risked another breakthrough, because apparently my auto-heal system had been secretly eating my medicine like a kid sneaking cookies. Today's daily quest was laughably simple. Chop 100 pieces of firewood. That's it. That's the whole mission. For a body-tempering 5 cultivator, this was like asking a professional bodybuilder to open a jar of pickles. I grabbed an axe, went to town on a pile of logs, and had the whole thing done in under 30 minutes. The quest tracker even counted for me. A nice little progress bar ticking up with every swing, so I didn't have to use my brain at all. 1,000 experience. Thank you very much. Goodbye, firewood. Then I headed for the alchemy hall to do my daily money printing session and walked straight into a closed for maintenance sign. In 10 years of playing this game, the alchemy hall had never closed. Not once. Not for holidays, not for explosions, not for anything. But this was reality now, and yesterday's chain reaction furnace apocalypse had apparently convinced someone in management that maybe, just maybe, letting a building full of incompetent pill makers blow things up daily wasn't great for structural integrity. Fair enough. Can't argue with physics. With my primary income source temporarily offline, I wandered around looking for alternative sect activities. Technique Hall, Weapon Forge, Herb Garden, Bounty Hall, plenty of options. But as I strolled past the Bounty Hall, I stopped dead in my tracks. A massive green orb of light was hovering right there at the entrance. Pulsing. Glowing. Impossible to miss. A world quest. My heart nearly punched through my ribcage. World quests were the big leagues. Massive storyline events with enormous experience payouts that shaped the entire game's narrative. In the game, this particular quest didn't appear until Body Tempering 7. But reality didn't care about level gates. Reality just dropped quests whenever it felt like it, regardless of whether you were ready or not. The universe had the scheduling discipline of a drunk party planner. I knew this quest intimately. Every step, every twist, every hidden mechanism. Villages near the sect had been mysteriously emptied, people vanishing without a trace. The sect suspected demonic cultivators. Players were sent to investigate, discover the truth, and report back. Standard, something evil is happening in the countryside, storyline. But here was my problem. This quest was practically designed around Yi Ningfrost. In the game, she was the one who stumbled into hidden passages, accidentally triggered ancient mechanisms, and basically bumbled her way through critical plot points through sheer protagonist luck. Without her stepping on the right floor tiles and falling through the right trapdoors, half the quest objectives were literally impossible to complete. She was less of a party member and more of a very pretty skeleton key. So I waited. Stood outside the bounty hall like a creep, watching the entrance, hoping she'd show up. Because if I accepted this quest solo and she wasn't involved, the whole thing might glitch out. And the experience from this quest was non-negotiable. Without it, my entire progression timeline would collapse like a house of cards in a hurricane. Then I saw her, walking toward the bounty hall with a green exclamation mark floating above her head like a neon sign that said, "Plot device approaching." She spotted me, and her face lit up like sunrise. Young master. Young master. She was waving and running toward me with the enthusiasm of a golden retriever seeing its owner after a 10-minute separation. We'd been at the same sect for 3 days, and she'd acted like we'd been apart for years. She started explaining that she'd picked up a hunting mission and wanted to ask if maybe I could possibly. "I'll go with you," I said before she finished. Her eyes went wide with delight. Meanwhile, I was staring at my invisible quest screen watching "World Quest Accepted" flash in glorious green letters. "Sorry, Ningfrost. This isn't romance. It's resource management. You're my quest key, and I'm your bodyguard-shaped experience vacuum." But something worried me. I used my true spirit eye to scan her cultivation level. Body tempering 1. After 3 days at the sect. In the game, she was supposed to be at layer 3 before triggering this quest, and the quest rewards would push her to 5. But she was starting from 1. Could the rewards still boost her enough? If she fell behind schedule, the main storyline quests would become impossible for her, which meant impossible for me, which meant my entire survival strategy was built on a foundation that was currently 2 levels too weak. I filed that concern under panic about later and focused on the present. 3 other disciples were tagging along. I recognized them all instantly from the game, and knowing their fates made my chest tight. The leader was senior brother He, body tempering 9, peak level. Handsome guy with a jade-like elegance and sharp, honest eyes. In the game, every player who ever ran this quest learned to love this man in about 20 minutes and mourn him in 21. He was the squad's main fighter, a genuinely good person, and he was scripted to die. Sacrifice play against the final boss. Mutual destruction. Every new player's first heartbreak. Veterans would start the quest by typing, "Godspeed, brother He," in chat because they already knew what was coming. The other 2 were extras, body tempering 3 and 4 respectively. In the game, they died early in the quest to establish that the situation was dangerous. Narrative cannon fodder. Red shirts. The guys whose job was to die so the audience understood the stakes. 3 good people. 3 predetermined deaths. And I was standing here knowing all of it, smiling politely, shaking hands, acting like everything was fine. Brother He asked my cultivation level. I told him straight. Body tempering 5, 3 days in. His eyebrows nearly launched off his face. I explained it away as former martial artist, lots of accumulated foundation, just needed cultivation techniques to unlock what was already there. Yi Ningfrost backed me up enthusiastically because she'd personally witnessed me solo a bandit camp before we even joined the sect. Brother He relaxed immediately. Well then, this mission just got a lot safer. The other 2 guys who'd been giving me jealous looks, partly because of my face, partly because Yi Ningfrost was orbiting me like a lovesick satellite, instantly switched to friendly mode once they heard my level was higher than both of theirs combined. Amazing how fast hostility turns to hospitality when you realize the pretty boy could bench press your house. We set out as a group of 5. A straightforward investigation mission with a known ending that I desperately wanted to rewrite. 3 people were walking toward their own deaths with smiles on their faces, and only I knew it. The question was, in a world that wasn't a game anymore, did those deaths still have to happen? The second we left the sect gates, apparently the entire senior leadership erupted into a screaming match about Lu Qingyi's little, surprise quest. I wasn't there obviously, but the story spread through the sect like wildfire, and honestly, it was the funniest political drama I'd ever heard about. The sect master apparently tried to yell at Lu Qingyi, chickened out halfway through his own sentence, and had to restart in a calmer voice like a dad who remembered his daughter could ground him. Do you have any idea how dangerous this mission is for Yi Ningfrost? Lu Qingyi just sipped her tea. It's not dangerous for anyone above body tempering 5, but Yi Ningfrost accepted it. Did I make her accept it? Checkmate. The man was arguing with a wall that drank tea and had zero respect for authority. She dropped her philosophy on them like a bomb. If Yi Ningfrost can't judge her own limits, she'll die eventually anyway, prophecy or no prophecy. If she survives, she's worthy. If she doesn't, then the ancestor picked wrong and everyone's been wasting their time worshipping a fortune cookie. The second senior brother, the scholarly type who argued with Lu Qingyi the way cats fight bathtubs, tried to interject. She shut him down before he opened his mouth. Anyone who disagrees can teach her themselves. Otherwise, stop backseat driving my student. He turned red, choked on his own words, and picked his book back up like a man who'd just been spiritually assassinated in public. Lu Qingyi announced she'd be secretly following our mission to evaluate Yi Ningfrost, and if the girl disappointed her, she'd reject her as a student entirely. Ancestors' prophecy be damned. Then she vanished from the room like a mic drop with legs. Meanwhile, 300 kilometers away from all that political theater, I was discovering that this world didn't have fast travel. 300 kilometers. On horseback. In the game, I'd just click a teleport stone and arrive instantly. Now I was sitting on a living animal that smelled like a living animal, bouncing along a dirt road, discovering muscles in my thighs I didn't know existed. The weird part, I'd never ridden a horse in either life, but the moment I climbed on, my body knew exactly what to do. Hands, posture, rhythm, perfect. My system casually informed me I had horsemanship, grand perfection. Apparently this body came preloaded with equestrian skills, like a car with cruise control I'd never noticed. Yi Ningfrost could also ride, and she looked annoyingly good doing it. Her sect robes flowing in the wind, sitting tall and confident. She had the whole warrior maiden aesthetic nailed. She caught me looking and blushed. I immediately stared at the road ahead like it contained the secrets of the universe because cameraman protocol was still in full effect.